My boyfriend bragged about putting me in my place after kissing his ex. He thought I'd crawl back, but he begged for mercy and 38 texts later. Logan began referring to his actions as jokes 6 months ago whenever I asked him a question. I asked him to refrain from flirting with girls at parties in October, which started the pattern. I was obsessed with him, he said, laughing, to his friends. This made Zach, Ryan, and Jake laugh. Every time I was around, they began to make remarks about clingy girlfriends. Logan started to push limits. In bars, he would wink at me from across the room while dancing with other girls. In front of me, he began approaching random women and giving them his number. He claimed I was being overly dramatic about everyday social interaction when I confronted him later. He would shake his head and say, "It's just dancing," as if I were completely insane. Without fail, his friends were always there to support him. Last weekend, Logan's ex-girlfriend Sophie appeared at Zach's birthday celebration in a form-fitting red dress. Although Logan said they were just being friendly, she had been messaging him for weeks. I saw her run her fingers along his bicep and touch his arm as she spoke. Logan smirked and continued to look at me. In order to record everything, his friends Ryan and Jake set up shop close by with their phones out. People from our college and other local schools were crammed into the party. We got there at 8. And Logan had been drinking steadily ever since. For hours, he ignored me entirely while continuing to buy Sophie drinks. He turned away from me, or changed the topic every time I attempted to join in on their conversation. Logan took Sophie by the waist and drew her in at around 10:30. His hands were on her hips as he gave her a full tongue kiss. At least 45 seconds passed during the kiss. Jake and Ryan immediately began chanting. They pointed their cameras straight at me and shouted, "She deserved it. She deserved it." Several others turned to observe the spectacle. Some people chuckled. Others remained silent but appeared uneasy. Logan drew away from Sophie and looked directly at me. "Just a joke, babe," he exclaimed with a smile. In his ear, Sophie whispered something while giggling. He squeezed her waist once more while nodding. I made my way through the throng to the front door. People stepped aside and gazed. My phone began to buzz before I even got to my car. My screen displayed text after text. Logan was sending messages more quickly than I could read them. By the time I got home, there were 20 in all. "You're ruining my night. Come back right now and apologize to Sophie. Stop being so dramatic about everything. Everyone at this party thinks you're completely psycho now." I turned off my phone completely and drove home, saying, "This is exactly why guys don't want serious girlfriends. You totally embarrassed me in front of all my friends. Learn to take a harmless joke for once in your life." Logan had uploaded 8 Instagram stories between midnight and 2:30 a.m. on Sunday morning when I checked it. Videos of him making out with random partygoers. Women dancing in close-ups against him. The final story featured Logan taking pictures with 3 different girls, and each caption went something like, "This is what happens when you try to control me. And freedom feels so good right now." According to the caption, single life hits different. In each and every post, he had tagged Jake, Zach, and Ryan. At 2:30 a.m., Logan arrived at my apartment complex. On Sunday morning, for 5 minutes in a row, he banged on the front door and shouted my name loudly enough to wake up the units next door. I opened it at last, and he smelled of cigarettes, alcohol, and several perfumes. There were creases, and a dark stain on his button-down shirt, and his hair was sticking up in all directions. He said, "You're a psycho girlfriend," as he swayed against my door. "Every guy cheats on their girl eventually. At least I did it to your face instead of sneaking around behind your back like some coward." I instructed him to leave right away. Leaning against the doorframe, he laughed. "You'll forgive me by Tuesday like you always do," he responded. Then he staggered back to his car and drove off, saying, "Remember when I made out with your sister's friend at Christmas? You got over that real quick?" Ryan sent me a private Instagram message on Monday afternoon. I closed the app after reading the message twice. "You're way too uptight about everything. Logan was teaching you an important lesson about trust and boundaries. You should be grateful he cares enough to help you grow as a person." I received a message from Emily 20 minutes later. The group chat on Zach's phone was visible to her, who is his girlfriend. 23 screenshots of their conversation from Sunday night were sent to me by her. Logan was boasting about how he had put me in my place. "She'll come crawling back like always," he stated. Jake responded with sobbing laughing emojis. "They all do when you show them who's really the boss." He wrote, "Savage move. Bro." Ryan went on to say, "She definitely needed that reality check." Logan sent a picture of himself in bed, his hair disheveled and shirtless. More laughing emojis followed from all his friends. He captioned it, saying, "Single life is treating me incredibly well already. Logan thinks he knows exactly who I am. He thinks I'm still the same naive girl who apologized after our first fight 3 years ago." First update. Remember how Logan said I'd come crawling back by Tuesday? Well, guess what happened on Tuesday? Nothing at all. He's probably out celebrating with his friends right now, thinking he's won some sort of victory, and he has no idea what's coming for him. The girl who blamed herself when he joked about my weight in front of his entire family last Christmas. I didn't check his social media. I didn't text him. And by Wednesday morning, I had 50 text messages and 22 missed calls. Logan's messages began normally, saying things like, "Hey babe, you're being really immature about this whole thing." Apparently, this broke his entire brain. "I know you're reading these messages," they said as their desperation grew. "When I try to fix this, why do you ignore me?" He was practically having a text meltdown by Thursday, saying, "I can't believe you're actually going to throw away 3 years over one harmless joke," he said. "This silent treatment thing is getting really old. To me, Sophie meant nothing at all. You must understand that. My friends were encouraging me while I was inebriated." He kept calling it a joke, as if making out with his ex while his friends were filming me was just a funny practical joke that I should enjoy. This is what really irritates me. This man's audacity is truly remarkable. On Friday afternoon, he showed up at my workplace. My coworker Chloe came to find me in the break room and informed me that there was a man in the lobby asking for me, looking really agitated. I peeked around the corner and saw Logan pacing back and forth, running his hands through his hair as he usually does when he's stressed. His face brightened as I walked out there, as if I was finally ready to forgive him, and he began speaking right away, saying, "Thank God, I've been trying to get in touch with you for days." I told him that since he had already made such a public mockery of our relationship, we could discuss this matter in the lobby and decide how to proceed together. "Don't be like this," he uttered, his face changing quickly. "You're being really unfair." In response to my question about what he was apologizing for, this man genuinely expressed regret that I misinterpreted his joke and felt offended. "I came here to apologize and work things out like adults." I told him his apology was noted, and he could go now, but he became louder and said I was being totally irrational and making this whole thing much bigger than it needed to be. I'm not sorry for kissing his ex, for making me feel embarrassed, or that I'm too sensitive to enjoy his sense of humor. Every couple goes through stuff like this, he said. It's called growing together and learning to trust each other. At this point, Chloe and half of the office were watching from behind the reception desk. Logan finally lowered his voice, stepped closer, and informed me that he wouldn't leave until we had resolved this issue. After seeing those screenshots of the group chat, I realized something important. He really thought I would give in like I always had before, and the old me would have been ashamed of making a scene at work, and would have agreed to speak in private just to get him to leave. I told Logan that we were done, not taking a break, not working through problems, but completely finished, and his face went through about 5 different emotions in 10 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, anger, and then this strange fake laugh that made it seem like I was obviously kidding. It changed everything for me to read him boast about putting me in my place, and knowing that I'd come crawling back. "You don't mean that," he said. "Since we've been dating for 3 years. I completely understand that you're upset right now. You can't just brush that off over something this dumb." I clarified that making out with his ex, while his friends were filming, it wasn't dumb. Rather, it was intentional humiliation. Logan became defensive right away, saying that his group chat messages revealed his true feelings for me, and that it wasn't romantic to show up drunk at my apartment at 2:30 in the morning. It was disrespectful and, to be honest, a little frightening. "Those guys were just being guys," he said. "You are familiar with group chats. To make each other feel good, we say dumb things. It doesn't mean anything real," he said, adding that the kiss with Sophie was nothing more serious than him showing off while intoxicated. However, what really hit home for me was that he rolled his eyes when I said that I was afraid when he showed up intoxicated. "Come on. You know I would never hurt you," he actually said. "Reduce your exaggerated behavior." I learned everything I needed to know from his dismissal of my feelings regarding his inebriated 2:30 visit. This man does not respect my boundaries, my feelings, or my basic sense of safety, and he never will because, in his opinion, I'm just being dramatic and overly sensitive. I turned around and returned to work as if he had never been there. I watched him stand there through the window for another 10 minutes, presumably waiting for me to return outside and continue the conversation. My sister Emily had left me 3 voicemails when I got home that night, stating that Logan had called her to ask if she could talk sense into me. He explained that I was having a breakdown and that I needed family intervention to see reason. Emily was incensed. She claimed that Logan had described the entire party scenario as though he had been the victim of my domineering and jealous behavior. Emily was incensed, claiming that I had lost my mind over harmless flirting and was now punishing him with silence. The best part, though, is that Emily was present at Zach's party. She was present when Logan attempted to rewrite history and make himself the victim, but she quickly shut that down, telling Logan that what she had witnessed was not innocent flirting, but rather the public humiliation of his girlfriend for entertainment. She saw Logan kiss Sophie as his friends chanted and recorded, and she saw how embarrassed I looked as I left. Any man who would do that to someone he supposedly loved had serious problems, and she'd have some choice words for him if he ever called her again trying to manipulate family members. Logan apparently did not take this well, and Emily said he began arguing with her, insisting she didn't fully understand the context, and that I had been controlling and jealous for months. He accused her of encouraging my dramatic behavior when she refused to agree with him. That conversation took place yesterday. Logan's mother texted me this morning, saying, "Hello, sweetie. Logan informed me that there are issues between you two. I was hoping we could discuss finding a solution over coffee this weekend. You are aware of Logan's love for you. Logan believes that if enough people tell me to forgive him, I'll give in to pressure and return to being his doormat girlfriend. But he doesn't realize that I'm not the same person who apologized after his last joke." That's when I realized Logan's master plan. He's calling in reinforcements. His mom, my sister, and probably planning to get our mutual friends involved too. He wants to play games and involve other people, so I'm not the girl who blamed herself when he flirted with my sister. I've been working on something since Sunday, and it's almost ready. The second update is that Tuesday will be very interesting. Zach can play that game, but he won't enjoy my version nearly as much as his own. I'm shaking with anger right now, but I'm also kind of impressed with how this all worked out. So, remember when Logan's mom wanted to go get coffee? Well, that was only the start of his masterful scheme to manipulate both of our families. On Saturday morning, I'm at Target shopping for groceries when my mom calls. She seems concerned and asks me if I'm all right because she just got off the phone with Logan's mother, who apparently told his parents that I'm having a mental health crisis, and that I'm not talking about our relationship issues. I tell my mom about the entire party situation, including the kiss with Sophie, the filming, the group chat messages, and everything else. After listening, my mom becomes enraged and tells me that Logan's mother painted a totally different picture, saying that I had a jealousy-fueled breakdown over innocent socializing, and that now I'm punishing Logan with cruel silence. My mom calls Logan's mother back right away, and I can hear both sides of the conversation because she kept the speaker on. My mom interrupts Logan's mother, who begins by speaking about how worried she is about my emotional state, and how Logan is upset that I won't even talk about solving our problems, and then goes on to describe what really transpired at that party. The purposeful kissing, the public humiliation, the friends chanting, and the videotaping of my response. After a long period of silence, Logan's mother says, "That's not the story Logan told them at all." According to Logan's account, I became irrationally envious when his ex appeared at the party, making a big deal out of him being courteous to her before storming out in a dramatic manner when he gave her a goodbye hug. My mom is shocked, asking Logan's mother if she really thinks her son would lie about something this serious. There's a long pause, and his friends were laughing at my overreaction, not taking part in any humiliation. The Instagram posts were just him venting after I didn't answer his calls. My mom loses it when Logan's mother says she believes in her son. Perhaps there are two sides to every story. She tells Logan's mother that if her son believes that kissing other women in front of his girlfriend is acceptable relationship behavior, then perhaps she was a bad parent. She says that any mother who supports her adult son kissing other women is obviously raising him to be disrespectful to women. The situation worsens on Sunday afternoon when Logan's mother hangs up on her. My dad calls to report that Logan showed up at our house to speak with him directly about the situation while he was working in the garage. Logan just showed up without invitation, acting respectful and worried. My dad, who doesn't yet know the whole story, listens politely as Logan explains how much he loves me and wants to work through my insecurities with me. He's willing to go to couples counseling and do whatever it takes to help me feel more secure in our relationship. Logan told my dad that I've been struggling with jealousy and trust issues for months, and that he's been trying to be patient and understanding, but I've gotten increasingly controlling about his friendships with women. My dad tells Logan he'll think about it and get back to me, but after Logan leaves, my dad calls me bewildered as to why Logan seems so sincere and worried if he actually did what I described. Logan then asks my dad to talk to me about giving their relationship another chance, saying he knows I respect my father's opinion and might listen to him when I won't listen to anyone else. My dad's expression changes completely as I tell him the whole story. The months of testing boundaries, the purposeful flirting, the kiss with Sophie while his friends were filming, the group chat messages boasting about putting me in my place, and I drive straight over to their house and sit down with them both. By the time I finish, my dad is enraged that Logan came to their house and lied to him directly. My mom shows him the screenshot that Emily sent from the group chat, and when he reads that Logan called me a psycho girlfriend and said that I'll come crawling back, he loses it. He calls Logan right away and puts it on speaker. My dad cuts straight to the chase and asks Logan to explain the group chat messages about putting me in my place. Logan stutters for a moment before claiming that those were just guy talk and didn't mean anything serious, that men exaggerate in group chats to sound tough, but that's not how they really feel. Logan's response is generally positive, as if he believes my dad is calling to help persuade me. He claims that after I left him, he was upset and venting to his friends. When my dad inquires about the video of him kissing Sophie, Logan says it was just a friendly kiss that appeared worse on camera than it was, and that his friends were intoxicated and making foolish remarks, but he has no control over what other people say or do. My dad then asks Logan the question that opens the door. Why did Logan lie about what happened when he came to their house? Why did he tell a completely different story that made me look unstable and jealous instead of admitting that he kissed another woman? Logan immediately becomes defensive, claiming that he was trying to protect my reputation by not telling my parents how badly I overreacted, and that he didn't want them to think less of me for making such a dramatic scene over nothing. My dad tells Logan that lying to my parents to get them to put pressure on me is not protecting my reputation. It's manipulative. That any man who would publicly humiliate his girlfriend and then lie to her family about it is not welcome in their house ever again. Logan begins to argue that my dad doesn't understand the full context, and that I've been telling a one-sided story. If my dad truly knew how controlling and jealous I'd become, he would understand why Logan was at his breaking up. Logan tries to interrupt, but my dad cuts him off, saying that lying to parents in order to control their daughter demonstrates exactly what kind of character Logan has, and that any man who would do that is a coward, who can't face the consequences of his own actions. The call ends with my dad hanging up on Logan and telling him never to contact our family again. When I wake up, Logan has sent me 38 texts. The messages, which begin at 2:30 a.m. and last until 5:30 a.m., are pure stream of consciousness desperation. Your parents have completely turned against me now thanks to your lies, the messages read. Guys, this man has completely lost his mind. I never told your dad a lie. I wanted to avoid hurting your feelings. Everything positive we had together is being destroyed by your careless error. I can't eat or sleep without you, and I'm going crazy. At 4 a.m. The messages take a darker turn. You've made me look like a monster to both our families. Everyone I care about is choosing your side without hearing mine. You're using everything I trusted you with against me, wasting 3 years of my life because you can't even forgive one mistake. I don't even know who you've become. The last message at 5:30 a.m. simply states, I'm not giving up on us, no matter what you do. On Wednesday night, Logan reappears at my parents' house. My dad calls me right away after spotting him through the window. When I drive over, Logan is sitting on their front porch and won't leave until someone speaks to him. I approach him and ask him what the devil he's doing, and he tells me that he's been waiting for someone to come home for 2 hours so he can properly explain his side. Logan talks quickly about how everyone has turned against him because of incomplete information, that the group chat messages were taken out of context, and that the kiss with Sophie was just drunken foolishness, rather than intentional cruelty. He tells me that he has been in love with me for 3 years, and that he would never intentionally hurt me, but that he did, and that his actions had consequences, forcing him to live with them. Logan becomes even more irate and accuses me of being unforgiving of a single drunken mistake, asking me to focus on the positive aspects of our relationship rather than just one bad night. Reminds me of our future plans, vacations with each other's families, and our trips together. He claims that 3 years of love and commitment should be worth more than 15 minutes of bad judgment. But the thing that really bothers me is that he still refuses to accept full responsibility, blaming it on one bad night, a mistake, or poor judgment. Never. I kissed my ex on purpose to hurt you. Or I let my friends film your humiliation for amusement. My dad comes outside and orders Logan to leave their property right away, and Logan begins to argue that he has the right to try to salvage his relationship, and that my dad is meddling in matters that are not his concern. Before Logan leaves, my dad turns to me and says, "This isn't over between us." My dad tells Logan that when he lies to parents to manipulate their daughter, it becomes their business. And that Logan made it their business by enlisting them in his plot to get me to forgive him. He knows I still love him, and eventually I'll realize I'm throwing away the best thing that ever happened to me. Logan honestly feels like the victim in this situation, thinking, I'm ruining a good relationship over one minor incident that I'm blowing completely out of proportion. But there's something I've been working on since it all began. The trap is nearly ready. Logan believes he knows me, but he has no idea what I'm truly capable of when someone pushes me too far. That will reveal to Logan exactly who he's been dealing with all along. And after witnessing him manipulate both of our families this week, I'm more driven than ever to make sure he gets exactly what he deserves. Final update, guys. I'm still buzzing from the adrenaline and genuinely feeling like the absolute queen I know I am. This is what I've been planning since this whole nightmare began. I can't believe what just happened. Remember that trap I mentioned? Well, it went down yesterday. And Logan's entire world just imploded in the most beautiful way possible. Logan believes that his manipulation techniques are clever, but he made a critical error. He underestimated my intelligence and my familiarity with his patterns. As you can see, Logan has a tendency to boast about his victories. And he always has. He recorded the entire Sophie kiss incident because he enjoys having evidence of his dominance over women. And he had saved videos from that party, which I knew. On Thursday afternoon, I text Logan to ask if we can meet up to talk, not to reconcile, but to have a candid discussion about where we went wrong so we can both move on. He replies in 30 seconds that we can, and suggests that we meet at the coffee shop near campus where we had our first date. At 2 p.m. on Saturday, I show up at Logan's place, and he immediately agrees, probably thinking I'm finally ready to come crawling back like he predicted, but I tell him that's too public and emotional for this kind of conversation. What if we meet at his apartment Saturday afternoon so we can talk privately without interruptions? I tell Logan that I've been thinking a lot about our relationship, and that I want to understand his perspective on what happened, that maybe I did overreact to some things, and that I want to hear his side, without interrupting or getting defensive. He also offers me coffee and asks how I've been doing, looking concerned and caring as if he weren't sending me insane texts at 4 a.m. Logan's entire face lights up as he begins to explain that he never intended to hurt me, that the party situation got out of control because of peer pressure and alcohol, and that kissing Sophie was just him being foolish and showing off. Not any kind of deliberate betrayal. I nod along and ask follow-up questions, such as what exactly his friends were saying that made him feel pressured, how the kiss with Sophie actually started, and whether there was anything leading up to it that I missed. Logan becomes more animated as he talks about how Ryan and Jake dared him to prove he wasn't afraid of me by flirting with other women. I act shocked and hurt by this revelation, and then he tells me something I didn't know before. Apparently, the whole thing was planned. Earlier that week, Ryan texted Sophie and invited her to the party specifically to mess with our relationship. Thinking it would be hilarious to see how I'd react to her showing up, I asked Logan why he went along with a plan designed to humiliate me. And he says he didn't know about Ryan's plan until that night, and by then he was too drunk to think clearly. I tell Logan I appreciate his honesty, and I'm beginning to understand what really happened, that perhaps I was too quick to judge the situation without knowing all the facts. Logan explained that when Sophie started flirting with him, his friends started filming and encouraging him, and that he felt trapped between disappointing his friends and disappointing me, so he made a split-second decision that he immediately regretted. I asked the question I've been putting off, and Logan relaxes completely, likely thinking he's managed to get me to forgive him again. I tell Logan that my friends have been asking me what actually happened that night, and I want to be able to give them a precise explanation. Logan hesitates for a moment before acknowledging that he has some videos on his phone, saying that his friends sent him clips from that night. but he hasn't looked at them because they're too painful to watch. Can you still have any videos from the party that might help me understand exactly how everything went down? I ask if we could watch them together, so I can see what he saw, and better understand his experience. Despite his obvious discomfort, Logan finally agrees, saying that perhaps it would be best for us both to face the truth about what happened. He takes out his phone and opens his photo gallery, revealing at least 15 videos from that party, which we begin to watch together. Guys, they are far worse than I even remembered. Before we move on to the videos of Logan with Sophie, there's one in which he's obviously groping her ass while she grinds against him. The first few contain Logan dancing with other women, while I'm standing close by looking uneasy, and you can hear Ryan and Jake saying things like testing my limits, and seeing how much I'll tolerate. The worst part is the kiss video, which shows Logan grabbing Sophie violently and kissing her with obvious passion while whispering in her ear while staring directly at me across the room. You can hear his friends laughing and saying things like, "She looks pissed." And this is so good. You can see me in the background, looking completely destroyed, as Ryan and Jake chant, "She deserved it," while pointing their cameras at me. But here's the part that really enrages me. A video shows Logan and Sophie making out again, more passionately this time, after I left. While Jake is filming, you can hear him say, "Post this. She needs to see what she's missing." Logan continues to downplay what I'm seeing as we watch these videos, saying, "It looks worse on camera than it felt in person." He has her pressed against the wall with his hands up her dress. I can hardly recall this incident because I was so inebriated. The guys were just being stupid with their commentary. After we've finished watching, I turn to face Logan and tell him that those videos depict intentional, calculated cruelty meant to make fun of me, and that no amount of alcohol or peer pressure can justify such disrespect. Logan instantly starts to backtrack. I tell Logan that I appreciate him showing me the videos because now I have a full picture of what actually happened. He says the videos don't show the whole context, and that I'm misinterpreting what I'm seeing, that he was intoxicated and confused, and wasn't thinking clearly about how his actions might affect me. He looks perplexed and asks what I mean by that. So I take out my own phone and show him that I've been recording everything we've said, including his confession of planned humiliation, his admission of collusion with Ryan's plan, and his moments of downplaying and justifying his actions as the video evidence plays. When I remind Logan that we're in a one-party consent state, and that I have every legal right to record conversations I'm a part of, his face goes completely white, and he begins to splutter about how I tricked him and recorded him without his consent. I tell Logan that his confession, along with his own videos, paints a very clear picture of who he really is, and that I now have proof that he participated in a purposeful plan to humiliate me, then lied to both our families about what happened. Logan begins to panic and ask me what I'm going to do with the recording, so I tell him he's going to find out. I then start a group text with both of our parents, and send a pre-written message explaining that I've found out that Logan and his friends planned the party incident as a humiliation. I've attached the kiss video, which shows Logan passionately making out with Sophie while his friends chant that I deserve it. And I have video evidence, and a recorded confession that prove he lied to both families about what actually happened because I want everyone to see the truth for themselves. Key parts of our recorded conversation, where he confesses to following Ryan's plan, and the video of him groping her after I left him cause Logan to lose it. He reaches for my phone to stop me from sending any more messages, and begs me to erase everything and have a private conversation about this, claiming his parents will never forgive him if they see the videos. My mom texts, "I'm so sorry you went through this, sweetheart." And my phone immediately buzzes with responses from both families. I tell Logan that he should have considered that before he participated in humiliating me for his friend's amusement, that actions have consequences, and now he gets to face them. My dad just sends, "That piece of is dead to us," and says, "We're approaching right now." What truly makes this ideal, though, are Logan's parents' reactions. His mother texts, "Logan, come home right away." His father writes, "I'm disgusted by what I just watched. We need to talk. You're not the son we brought up." At this point, Logan is completely losing it. He is pleading with me to call our parents, and tell them that the videos are fake or misinterpreted. And he offers to do anything I want, if I will just help him put things right. I tell Logan that there is nothing to be done because this is exactly what he deserves. That he made the decision to publicly humiliate me for amusement, and now has to deal with the consequences. I laugh and tell Logan that everyone already knows exactly who we both are now, that he can try to spin this however he wants, but the videos speak for themselves. Logan becomes irate, and then threatens to tell everyone that I'm ruining his life over one mistake, and that I'll regret this when I realize what I've thrown away. The drive home was amazing, guys. I felt so powerful and in control. Like I'd finally gotten justice for all the times Logan humiliated me. And I just took it. Logan follows me to the door as I'm leaving his apartment, still pleading and threatening. I turn around and tell him this is the last time we'll ever speak. That if he contacts me, my family, or anyone in my life again, I'll be filing harassment charges. My mom said she called Logan's mother after seeing the videos, and according to my dad, he's proud of me for standing up for myself and exposing Logan's lies. My parents were waiting for me when I got home, hugging me, and apologizing for not realizing how bad things were. It seems that Logan's parents are ashamed of his actions and intend to have a serious talk with him about respecting women. The best part, though, happened later that night when Emily texted me screenshots from the group chat with Zach, Ryan, and Jake. Apparently, word got out about the videos, and now everyone who attended that party is aware of Logan's true nature. Logan hasn't posted anything on social media since yesterday, including stories or comments. The best part is that I achieved my retribution without resorting to any illegal or unethical means. I simply used Logan's own words and actions against him, and he destroyed himself by being exactly what he has always been, a manipulative, who believes he is smarter than everyone else. To all the commenters who suggested that I should forgive him and try to patch things up, Logan is one of those people who don't deserve forgiveness. Some people should be held accountable for their actions. I'm tired of being the understanding girlfriend who gives men who don't respect me second chances. I'm tired of allowing people to treat me like, because it's easier than defending myself. Logan believed that he could publicly humiliate me, and then use our families to pressure me into forgiving him because I was weak and desperate enough to return to him as I always had. Logan wanted to put me in my place, and I'm happy to say that my place is obviously a few levels above his manipulative. "You're a controlling," my wife screamed when I caught her in the bar. I smirked, then showed used condoms in her trash. Now she couldn't stop begging. A week after I moved out of the house during our divorce, I came across a box that was full with used condoms in the trash. I have been married to my wife for a period of 6 years, and we have been a couple for a total of 9 years. Despite the fact that we frequently ride our motorcycles separately, my partner and I are both passionate about motorcycling, and we spend a significant amount of time on our bikes. On the weekends, she enjoys going out to ride horses, and for some time, she formed the habit of not checking in with me, particularly in the late hours of the night. I would assume that any husband whose wife is riding a bicycle at midnight would be concerned, and would have every right to inquire about her whereabouts. It was a very contentious issue between us, and it appeared to be really challenging for her to want to divulge the location where she was staying. She accused me of suffocating her, and of being extremely needy since I needed to know where she was at all times. I have never been very satisfied with the manner in which she begrudgingly complied with the request, as if it were some sort of burden to update me on her whereabouts, and the possibility of her returning home at a later time, even though we worked it out. In therapy, I brought this issue to the attention of our therapist, who even raised her eyebrow in response to the late-night rides that did not include a check-in. Nevertheless, my wife never appeared to recognize that there was an issue, fast ahead to the previous couple of weekends. As it was growing increasingly late, my wife was out on her bike. I asked her whether she was planning on having dinner while she was away by sending her a message. "Yeah, I'm good, thank you, love you," she said in a straightforward manner. I was sort of hoping she would provide me with a little more explanation because it was beginning to get dark outside. After a period of time had gone by, I replied with the words, "Awesome, I'm going to be home for the night. What are you doing right now?" I did not receive a response, so I followed up with the following. "I really don't appreciate it when you go out on a Friday night and don't bother to let me know what you're up to." Perhaps what I did was a bit presumptuous, but she is well aware of the level of frustration that I have in this scenario. We have encountered this problem many times in the past. She became really furious as a result, and eventually we got into an argument through text messages. After that, she handed me a till, and stated her intention to continue riding her bicycle. It was only natural that I continued to send text messages. After a few messages, she reacted with the following statement. "I'm trying to drive my damn bike, and you are blowing up my phone with this. Which is uncalled for. I don't breathe down your neck asking your every move and respect, and trust you. Please do the same. It's exhausting." I was certain that she was not riding. I made the decision to drive over to the late-night pub that she liked the best, and enter the establishment, even though I understand that this may have been inappropriate. The bar was the place where she chose to sit. I placed my hand on the exhaust pipe of her bicycle, which was parked outside. The temperature was low. She told me that she had to slam on the brakes to react to my messages, and less than 8 minutes had transpired since that point. It is just not possible for an exhaust can to cool off at such a rapid pace. I am well aware that I may have gone too far in this situation, but I had the strong impression that I had been misled. After I sent her a brief message, letting her know that I was aware of her whereabouts, I headed home not long after that. We had a massive disagreement over this. She promised that she would do a better job of communicating with me from that point forward, after we resolved our differences. However, that is not considered a white lie. It is only a forerunner to a white lie. The next topic on the agenda is the actual problem that I am currently facing. Over the course of the past weekend, she was working at a bar in a neighborhood cafe. She made an effort to check in with me, which was really nice of her. But as the night went on, it started to seem like it had gone sour. She informed me that she intended to go to her office to complete some work. And I haven't heard anything more about her since then. After working out at the gym till late in the evening, I decided to go home, but not before calling her to see how she was doing. After I contacted her for the first time, she did not respond, but she returned my call several minutes later. I was able to make out the voices of other people in the background as we were having a conversation. In addition, the way that she was speaking seemed a little strange. She explained to me that she was expecting a phone call and that she needed to answer it immediately after a minute or so had passed. The significance of that phone call was something that impacted the two of us, which I more or less grasped. The agent representing the seller got in touch with us via phone. Currently, we are in the midst of the process of purchasing a new residence. I had anticipated that I would receive a call back with some news, but I never did. I decided to call her back after an hour had elapsed, in order to find out what information she had gathered regarding our proposal. She chose to react to the message with a text, rather than speaking verbally. "I will call you in a little while." I was able to determine that she was in her car when she phoned me again. She got started by telling me everything that she had learned and describing the length of the conversation that took place. The way in which she also called our lender, in order to verify some figures. I got the impression that there were a few narrative holes, because it didn't really make sense. I asked, "Where were you when I called?" She responded, "Well, I'm driving now. I pulled over to speak with the seller's agent after that." In the event that you pulled over in order to speak with him, then what would explain the fact that I was able to hear people in the background when I called you? I said. She was unable to come up with a response, and I decided to let the matter go. There was a sense of something being amiss. I made sure to let her know that all I wanted was for her to be able to feel as like she has the ability to tell me the truth when I saw her later that night. I had been expecting that she would confess, but that never came to pass. As a result, up until this very day, I have been examining our phone records since I was absolutely unable to forget the happenings that occurred during that evening. By no means or under no circumstances. She had told me a falsehood, which was a complete and utter surprise to me. My phone call to her was the only call that took place after that. She had feigned that someone had called in order to end the phone conversation that she was having with me. She told me that she was spending time with friends, and just wanted to have a good time when I challenged her. She went on to explain that it was easier to simply tell me a lie, so that she would not have to deal with my reaction. I was deeply wounded by this falsehood. Slapdash efforts and apologies are not her strong suit. An expression of regret for the fact that I misled you. The issue I am confronted with is that there is invariably a continuation. She said that she believes it is necessary to tell falsehoods due to the fact that I am insecure. In addition to that, I believe that I ought to place more trust in her. And it feels as though I do not allow her any space to take a breath at all. I should put in the effort to improve myself and develop a stronger sense of self-confidence and trust. It appeared as though she was attempting to excuse her own deception, as if, somehow, I was to blame for the situation. Neither one of us was successfully conveying our points during that chat, which was not very good. The only thing I am aware of is that I am feeling deceived once more, and I am at a loss as to how I can possibly trust her. I am additionally saddened by the fact that she could not readily acknowledge that she was incorrect, and subsequently made the situation revolve around my own fears. Is there any possibility that I am incorrect in this situation? I am completely at a loss as to what I should do. I haven't spoken to you since then, and I could really use your advice right now. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who endured this experience with me. Edit. I would like to provide an update on this for the people who asked it. It has been a few weeks since I published this. We are in the process of finalizing a divorce. Let's get to the point. To be honest, going through this whole range of emotions has been unpleasant. To put it mildly, there is not a single person who I would want to experience this. I was staying at an Airbnb in order to give us some time away from each other, while I was in the process of fielding your much-needed responses. At first, she was really angry. But she soon saw how crucial it was for her to spend some time away from everything. It was I myself who had ample time to contemplate a great number of the comments that were given here. I used all of my free time to write in a journal, in order to work out what I was thinking. After a week of being away from home, we had a conversation in which we shared our innermost thoughts and feelings. We both came to the conclusion independently that we should go our separate ways, which was a complete shock to me. As of right now, I am not convinced that she was unfaithful. Nor do I think that this is a case of substance dependency. These were recommendations that appeared to rise to the surface of this thread. It is possible that I am naive. But at this juncture, it is no longer relevant. Nevertheless, we are dealing with a textbook example of two individuals who are not compatible with one another. Over the course of the years, we have tried with all our might to salvage our marriage. And to be quite honest, the sensation of failure is the most challenging aspect to deal with. There are times when beautiful memories from the early days of our relationship rise to the surface and appear in the form of tears. She and I have experienced this loss in a way that was not the same for each of us. We have mourned at separate moments in time. It is inevitable that there will be some level of doubt and questioning that stems from the question, was it possible for us to make this work? It is hoped that, as the years go by, this uncertainty will become a faint murmur. To summarize, both of us are getting along well at this point in time, and we hope that our friendship will continue in the future. That is a friendship that was not carried over from a prior marriage, but rather one that was rebuilt from the very beginning. I have a feeling that, in certain respects, our relationship is already beginning to improve and heal. I am hoping that this will serve as an indicator of what the future holds. In the near future, I will be finalizing the purchase of my own residence. Although there is a slight undercurrent of worry and the sense of isolation that lies ahead, I believe that the opportunity to rehabilitate myself will soon overshadow those feelings. I am excited about the process of self-discovery and self-improvement, and I anticipate becoming more fond of myself as a person. I too hope that she has the very best. I would want to express my gratitude to all of those individuals whose perspectives and recommendations were crucial in assisting me in navigating through such a challenging period. Remarks to which the original poster has responded. Commentaire en degree 1. Mettez la piste sur le lieu de tournage. At the beginning, she simply provides an honest explanation of what she plans to do, and when she expects to return. She only sends text messages when she diverges from her plan. In this manner, you are able to maintain awareness of her whereabouts at all times, and you are not required to keep contact going, which I understand can be suffocating for her. It appears that the two of you have a problem. Neither of you listens to the other, and both of you are fixated on yourself. It is possible that you and your team will need to search for a solution to both of these problems together, similar to the one that I previously discussed. OP. Thank you so much for your recommendation. In the past, I only suggested that she use the location tracker when she was out late riding. The suggestion was not well received by her, and it never came to fruition. Commentaire 2. D'après vous, à quoi ressemble une communication améliorée? How frequently would you like to receive text messages from her while you are away? Are you searching for solid plans that have already been made prior to her going out? Continuous descriptions of the events, as they unfold. I am simply wondering what the perfect conversation might look like from your perspective in this situation. To be perfectly honest, I would be satisfied with just one genuine and thorough message about what she is doing. For instance, hey, sweetheart. I'm going to be spending some time with these individuals. I'll be home around midnight. If anything changes, I'll let you know. It never appears to be this straightforward. In many cases, there is a period of stillness after there have been fragments of plans. She becomes upset when I check up on her. I have the feeling that it is being perceived as if I am being cheap with my time, but in truth, I am simply attempting to piece together the bits of information after I have spent a weekend away with my wife, so that we can connect and spend time together. Only recently did we embark on an extended stay in a different state, and I have the feeling that we established a strong bond. This particular situation occurred on the weekend that immediately followed my bringing that up. I wanted to know from her whether or not the man she had a connection with on our trip was a person she thought it was necessary to lie to. Has the wife of OP exhibited similar behavior since the two of them tied the knot? Op. At the beginning of our marriage, it was not like this. We were once extremely entwined and made up a fantastic team. The fact that she has become independent and successful has recently become a source of conflict. Although I understand how important it is to allow her to grow and become more independent, this has resulted in me feeling more isolated, and as like I do not have a companion by my side. OP provides a more in-depth explanation of the nature of his connection with his wife. In general, I would not describe our relationship as robust. Over the course of the years, the degree of intimacy and closeness that we have shared has diminished. Approximately 1 to 2 years have passed since the avoidance began. The frequency of the late-night rides, and the absence of contact regarding her location, have been roughly the same. There was a period of time in the past when I became aware of the fact that she was communicating with another man through text messages and having lengthy chats with him. The fact that he was residing in a different state did not matter, according to her, because they were only friends. I was unaware that these discussions had been taking on for a period of several months. I still feel a little bit of resentment, and it has left me emotionally shattered. I have to admit that I made the comparison of it to an emotional affair, a statement that she refused to accept. I am not content with the degree of closeness we have, because I do not feel that we have been connecting on a deep level recently. I am not in a position to comment on her behalf. The same issues frequently serve as the basis for our significant disagreements. In order to begin a discussion, I am typically the one who brings up my worries. Nevertheless, this is often met with the response that I am excessively unsatisfied and am unable to simply leave things as they are. Even if she is behind the wheel of a vehicle, her late-night drives are the source of a significant portion of the issue. I would be willing to find out if any of this material provides you with additional understanding. Update. Everyone. Greetings. As a 36-year-old man, I would want to provide a final report on my tale, which is my unsuccessful marriage. In any case, both of us mutually agreed to go our separate ways. Therefore, I acknowledge that it was a sensible decision for the two of us, and I am now more confident than ever before in moving forward and finding my inner calm, given the experiences that I have just had. To put it simply, I have always been the one bringing in a constant paycheck. Her industry, which is 34F, relies on the seasons. Even though I wanted to just get out of there, I was aware that I couldn't just abandon her in order for her to figure out how to survive by herself. At first, the idea that she had put out was that we should live separately, yet remain under one roof until the following May. Had this been the case, she would have possessed both the security and the self-assurance necessary to continue through the hectic months of summer. Hell no, was my immediate response. I found the notion to be completely outlandish. To begin with, there is not a single possibility that would not exacerbate the already poisonous nature of our relationship even more. Secondly, I was very aware that it was absolutely necessary for me to detach myself in order to allow myself to recover and to reconstruct my life, which had essentially been destroyed. I made the decision to purchase my own home, but I also proposed to continue providing financial support to her until she was able to accumulate the money that she needed in order to begin her new life. For the week or so that I was finally closing in on the deal and beginning to settle down, we had maintained a cordial relationship. In fact, I would go as far as to say that we were becoming friends. The fact that I was so ecstatic about buying a new couch was not an exaggeration. My new home was utterly empty. In addition, it is only when you find yourself in a situation in which you are forced to make do with a wooden bar stool and a threadbare rug that you begin to realize how much you truly value having a pleasant place to sit after a hard day spent working. We had been demonstrating small gestures of goodwill to one another, but after a few days, we ceased communicating with one another. I suppose that this is something that we should anticipate. I was starting to rediscover a sense of love for myself, a feeling I had not felt in years, while I was taking in the peacefulness of my new house and appreciating it. To be truthful, I felt relieved that I didn't have to have a conversation with her. One of the things I wanted to make sure was handled correctly was the leak in the water heater at her residence. When I vacated the premises of my former home, I became aware of something. I am still the owner of that property. I contacted a plumbing company to take care of the issue as I have a hectic work schedule. I'll admit that I'm heartbroken every time I step foot inside that residence, and I was avoiding it just as much as I could. Unfortunately, The plumbers called off the appointment on 2 separate occasions, which was starting to make me frustrated. I decided that I would simply take care of it. I made sure to inform her that I was going to stop by, and she did not have any issues with it. I have a fair amount of experience as a plumber, and I was aware that the job would not take long. I determined that there was a pinhole leak when I got at the location. I got rid of the excess fluid in the lines, removed the piece that was broken, and quickly put together the fix. Here it is. In the garage, there was a garbage can that belonged to her, and I, of course, required a place to dispose of the remains of my plumbing project. What can I make out when I lift the cover off of it? A complete box that is filled with condoms that have been used. I was completely taken aback. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. I had not spent more than a week away from that residence, still married under the law. And here I am, repairing her home and providing the financial assistance she required in order to continue on with her life. I had a feeling, deep down inside, that being a part of this was something I did not want to continue doing. This wretchedness had to be something that I was free of. I sent her a text message with a picture of the water heater, which was in perfect condition. Please don't hesitate to give me a text message letting me know that you're keeping an eye on it for the next day or so. Eventually, she texted back her gratitude. I instructed her to give me a call at some point tomorrow so that we could talk. I was experiencing palpitations for several hours. This was the most horrific experience of all time, even though I had gone through some really ridiculous low points over the course of the last month or so. I did not feel prepared to have a conversation with her. I required sustenance. I felt completely drained of energy. To be honest, she was the one who made the call. She is quite worried about texts that say things like, "Call me." I was aware of this to some extent, but I really needed the night to get some sleep and put myself back together. There was a sound coming from the phone. It was ringing. I told myself, I guess we are going to do this. I began the conversation by letting her know that the water heater is ready to go, but she might want to have a professional take a look at it within the year. The following section of this discussion will be going forward with some difficulty. I did not explicitly inform her that I was aware that she was already seeing someone new. The only thing I witnessed was my own ruination, as I turned it into my own business or even considered doing so. I told her that I was going to stop participating in all of the accounts that we share, and that she would have to find out how to deal with the situation on her own. All I said was, I know you've moved on, and I know how you've chosen to do so. She was really angry. That is a fact. Can you remind me of the word that you taught me during my first post? Darvo is a manipulative tactic that involves making someone feel sorry for you. Indeed, an abundance of that. Accusations, name-calling, and an overwhelming amount of gaslighting were all involved. She even went as far as to degrade my character by telling me that she believed I was proud to be someone who was honorable and respectable. Absolutely. She continually alluded to the fact that she believed that we had come to an agreement, in which we were permitted to have our requirements satisfied. While I did not explicitly say it, I genuinely believe that she had a skewed understanding of what constitutes a true requirement. What do you think about the idea of financial security? What do you think of landing softly with your spouse, with whom you have been married for 9 years and with whom you assert that you desire to continue your friendship? Therefore, what is the reason that I am writing this? For a couple of different reasons. First of all, the conclusion of my story is this. There is no way that I will ever feel this way about this again. From this point on, it will only continue to recover and expand. Secondly, a large number of individuals on Reddit think that she was cheating, based on my most recent article. I did not have any grounds to think this, but after the speed with which she jumped on some guy immediately after I moved out, it is possible that the rest of you were not far off the mark. Third, and I suppose this is more of an opportunity to let out some steam. Just a few hours ago, I also had to euthanize my cat because she had cancer. What a day, oh my God. Regardless, I am overjoyed to leave that poisonous situation behind me. I am strongly inclined to sever all connections, and I really desire to have faith that this is the correct decision. However, I am left to ponder whether or not she was obligated to make an effort to delay her desires until we separated our finances. I am quite interested in learning what other people have to say about this. I am hoping to gain knowledge and experience from every piece of feedback I receive. It goes without saying that I will not be making any more posts in the near future. I would like to express my gratitude to all of you for your insight, as I have continued to work on my story. Remarks to which the original poster has responded. Commentaire in degree 1. Une boîte entière de préservatifs ayant déjà servi. I was completely taken aback. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. I had not spent more than a week away from that residence. Still married under the law. It is difficult to understand how you feel at this moment. But if she is so eager to move on from you physically, then it is time for you to move on from this emotionally as well. That also includes emotionally severing ties with her, and isolating her from everything else financially. Additionally, it would suggest that she likely had something previously arranged prior to the divorce, perhaps even before it was a possibility. That is an incredibly fast turnaround time, although this is only a hypothesis. Determine where the house is located. Investigate the details of the separation. When discussing these matters, just speak with her. As far as possible without incurring any charges for you. Have your attorney handle the divorce proceedings. Move past this. Everything that has been mentioned. I have spent a significant amount of time being gaslighted, and I get the impression that I am finally able to recognize it for what it is. I would really like to inquire as to whether or not this was someone that she has been in a relationship with or if it was simply a one-time occurrence. Just thinking about the question is enough to cause more pain, and if she were the one answering it, the response would not be reliable. Regardless, second round of remarks. Goodness gracious. The most important lesson to be learned from this situation is to avoid letting others continuously trample all over you, and to recognize when it is necessary to speak out. It appears that you have finally figured out how to do it after years of passively accepting it. OP. My dude. I have been the one who has been in the wrong the entire time. And I have always been raised to feel that I should be the one apologizing. I am in this position, and I didn't expect it. But now I find myself a victim of an abusive relationship. The sense of certainty that I experienced at the moment that I informed her that I had finally begun to assert myself. There were no words that she could use to express what she was feeling. I discovered the foundation that will support the person I will become when I have crossed over this. Have the original posters been successful in their endeavors to locate evidence that would substantiate the allegations of their spouse's infidelity? I have put in a lot of effort to try to locate evidence, but I was never able to do so. I eventually came to the conclusion that I was grabbing at straws, because I became concerned about the situation. It is possible that I will never be aware of it, and continuing to search for answers would be like poison at this juncture. The individual who posted the initial question regarding the division of property in the context of a divorce. OP. We reached an agreement to relinquish our ownership claims over our respective properties. There is a significant amount of equity that has been accumulated in the house that she will be maintaining. I will be in a better position than I am in at present if our assets are split in a 60/40 ratio. On the package of condoms, the original poster provides clarification. Alright. Let me take a moment to get this straight in my head. There was an abundance of semantics associated with the box, which I had not anticipated. It is without a doubt an essential aspect that needs to be made known to the public. It was a box that had been crumpled and folded in half, with a used condom that had been tied off hanging out of it. I made no effort to investigate in order to determine how many condoms had been used. It's possible that the phrase box full of was an overgeneralization. To be perfectly honest, I am not certain about that. My Harvard lawyer boyfriend purposely sabotaged my dad's case. After he laughed about my dad's suffering, I exposed him and ended his career forever. Harvard lawyer boyfriend purposefully lost dad's case since filling is hard. I abruptly ended his career. I thought my boyfriend Dylan was the finest thing for my family. A Harvard-educated employment lawyer worked at a top firm. Dylan instantly offered to represent my dad after he was wrongly fired from his 19-year career. Don't worry about fees, he said. We're practically family. My dad was sacked 3 weeks before his pension. His manager said, "We found someone younger and cheaper." Age discrimination. Dylan called it a slam dunk. We'll get him full back pay. Pension. Damages. Everything. His confidence calmed my family. Dylan completed paperwork, scheduled depositions, and collected evidence. He'd tell my dad about developments over supper. He looked strong and said, "They're going to settle for sure." My dad trusted him. Why not? Dylan, a top lawyer charging $450 an hour, was dating his daughter. 7 months into the case, strange things happened. Dylan frequently missed deadlines, by a day or two, but enough for the court to notice. He overlooked important paperwork. He arrived at meetings unprepared. Just been swamped at work, he said. But I knew his schedule. His schedule was light. The deposition tragedy followed. Dylan never prepared my dad. Just showed there and said, "Just tell the truth." You'll be fine. My dad bungled every question. Made terrible comments out of context. Dylan didn't protest. Not redirected. Sitting. Taking notes. The opposing lawyer, a recent graduate, looked bewildered by Dylan's silence. Dad returned devastated. I think I messed up, he said. Dylan told him everything was all right. Depositions always feel worse than they are. The settlement conference was even worse. The company offered $12,000, an insulting amount. Dylan advised my dad to think. Saying bird in the hand, Dylan discouraged my dad against fighting because trials are risky. Juries are unpredictable. The judge seems to favor them. Maybe we should take what we can get. My mom asked me that night. Dylan attacked me when I said, something's wrong. Dylan's not fighting for us. I'm doing my best. Your dad's case isn't as strong as we thought, yet I saw the proof. They considered replacing him with someone younger in emails. The reviews were great till he turned 60. Perfect case. The October trial was scheduled. Dylan was unprepared. His introduction lasted 3 minutes. He forgot to record half the evidence. He allowed opposing lawyers to abuse my dad during testimony. Jurors appeared bewildered. Judge looked irritated. We lost. Full defense verdict. My dad got nothing. He lost his pension, back wages, everything. Dylan's reply seemed odd. These things happen. At least it's over now. His expression seemed almost relieved. Dylan was drunk at his flat later that night. He discussed the case. Honestly, this is probably for the best. Your dad would have been around all the time if he'd won. Wanting to golf, asking for advice, and showing up for dinner. Now he'll have to focus on finding work. I felt sick. Won't have time to bother us. What are you saying? Dylan laughed. Come on. You know how annoying father-in-laws are. Always in your business. At least now he'll be too broke and depressed to hassle much. I froze. Did you throw the case? Dylan smugged. Throw is a strong word. I left and went to Dylan's legal firm. To his paralegal buddy Tess, who'd always been chatty with me. Tess. I need to know something. How many employment discrimination cases has Dylan won? She checked. My dad was one of his 3 losses. Please show me the other loss. She shouldn't have shown me, but did. He also lost his ex-girlfriend's mother's 3-year divorce. The pattern was visible. Dylan boasted to his poker group 2 weeks later, drunk again, about how he'd found the perfect way to avoid in-laws. Offer legal help, then lose. They're too ashamed to come around much after that. His friend Nate was appalled. Nate was engaged to my cousin. He phoned me immediately. You need to know what Dylan just said. He taped the entire exchange on his phone for his poker night show. He kept the recording but never published the program. Dylan's whole confession, laughing about how my dad cried after the verdict, joking that he'd never have to spend holidays with my family, and detailing his methodology for appearing stupid and avoiding malpractice lawsuits. I gave Dylan's firm, the State Bar Association, and my dad's former company the tape. Dylan tried calling me hundreds of times. After the 100th call, I blocked his number and sat on my apartment floor with my phone. Again, I cranked Nate's recording until Dylan's laugh filled the room. My hands shook when he recalled my dad crying after the verdict, but not from despair. I felt icy and biting wrath instead of shock. Like I could see things clearly for the first time in months. I called Nate again and requested the whole recording and anything more from that poker night. He called back in 25 minutes to say he'd send everything immediately. An hour later, my email arrived with a 25-minute audio file and 6 text message photographs. The poker group heard Dylan brag about his strategy for avoiding potential in-laws. One text indicated he devised the strategy because his ex-girlfriend's mom kept calling for legal guidance. Another called my dad the perfect test case because the evidence was so strong nobody would suspect intentional failure. I organized everything into a timeline in a new laptop document. I verified Dylan's 37 victories and 3 losses using Tess's case record. I wrote down every missed deadline, forgotten document, and trial moment when Dylan sat there as the other lawyer demolished my dad's testimony. Poker night confessions were time-stamped in a different folder. Dylan's text portion had dates demonstrating he'd planned this strategy for years. Another folder held my dad's case records, and I reviewed every correspondence and performance assessment that demonstrated his case was solid. I had all the evidence of Dylan's planned sabotage by sunrise. After showering and changing, I went to Dylan's legal company. When I arrived at 8 a.m., the receptionist smiled and asked how she could help. I requested an emergency meeting with the managing partner, because I had evidence of professional misconduct by one of their lawyers. Her smile vanished, and she answered the phone. She tried to schedule me next week, but I stated this was urgent and unethical. After putting me on hold, she stated someone would see me soon. We were in a conference room 30 minutes later with Isabel Carter, Dylan's senior partner and department head. First, I gave her a folder with copies of everything, and asked her to listen to the tape. After inserting her headphones, her face hardened with each minute. She stopped filming and removed the headphones when Dylan revealed his strategic incompetence system and joked at my dad being too broke and depressed to bother us. I answered okay to her request copies of everything I brought. She spent the next hour asking extensive questions about my dad's situation, the time frame, and when I first sensed anything was wrong. She asked me to give a formal statement, and I answered yes right then. She brought in another attorney to take notes while I recounted Dylan's volunteerism, trial, and drunken confession. Isabel said attorney misbehavior was treated seriously. And this recording warranted an immediate investigation. Her team would investigate every case Dylan had handled, including the previous defeat involving his ex-girlfriend's mother. She pledged to suspend Dylan, pending an internal inquiry, and notify the State Bar Association. I left the law firm 4 hours later with Isabel's card and cell number, in case I remembered anything else. The State Bar Association offices across town were my next stop. A formal ethics complaint form and copies of my evidence were sent. The intake attorney was a young man who looked bored until he reviewed my materials. On hearing parts of the recording, his countenance altered, and he said this was one of the clearest incidents of misbehavior he'd witnessed. Someone will call to organize a detailed interview, he said. After driving home, I slumped on my couch, exhausted after staying up all night. My phone rang that afternoon with an unfamiliar number. He identified himself as Aaron Hayes, my complaint's ethical attorney. After reviewing my proof, he requested a lengthy interview immediately. He said willfully destroying a client's case was one of the worst attorney breaches and might lead to disbarment. His office hosted a meeting 4 days later. Aaron laid out my evidence bundle on a conference table when I arrived. We discussed Dylan's sabotage for 4 hours, from missed deadlines to unprepared depositions to the trial where he neglected to enter half the evidence. Aaron focused on the connection between my dad's case and the ex-girlfriend's mother's divorce. I was asked if there were any unidentified victims. It seemed feasible given Dylan's pride in his method, but I didn't know. Aaron took comprehensive notes and filmed our chat with my consent. He questioned about my relationship with Dylan, how my family trusted him, and when I discovered he'd thrown the case on purpose. After the interview, my throat was scratchy from talking, and my hands hurt from gripping my chair arms so tightly. Aaron led me to his office door and shook my hand. He told me the Bar Association would begin a months-long probe. He seemed serious as he said they'd interview witnesses, evaluate Dylan's cases, and determine his wrongdoing pattern. He said my proof was so obvious and powerful that they should immediately suspend Dylan's license. He questioned if I was ready for media coverage that could result. I said I didn't care who knew as long as Dylan was punished. Aaron nodded, promising to contact him shortly about future measures. Since I left Dylan at his apartment, my parents had been phoning me continuously, so I drove straight to their place. I had 18 mom missed calls and 12 dad missed calls. They came out before I got out of my car as I pulled into their driveway. My father looked bad. He'd always stood upright and smiled, but now his shoulders were bowed and his face was gray. He appeared to have aged 10 years since the trial. Crying made my mom's eyes red and puffy. She embraced me so hard I couldn't breathe. Along with my dad, we held hands in the driveway. My mom kept claiming she was worried about me. I told them to go inside since I had much to discuss. This was the kitchen table, where Dylan and I had many supper. I felt sick thinking about him sitting in that chair caring for my dad. I told them everything from the start. I recounted how Dylan confessed to intentionally throwing the case. Tess helped me uncover his case record and see his ex-girlfriend's mother's divorce pattern. I told them Nate recorded Dylan bragging about his system at poker night. My mom cried again when I told her I told Dylan's law firm and the State Bar Association. Dad sat staring at his hands on the table. He wondered if Dylan did it on purpose. I presented my phone as proof. The recording Nate sent me was played. Dylan laughed and joked with his poker mates across the speaker. I watched my dad's face as Dylan described how he'd found the perfect solution to avoid future in-laws. Dylan's voice stated my dad was too broke and depressed to bother us, and his face fell apart. His mouth opened to speak, but nothing came out. A tear fell from his cheek. Dylan chuckled at my dad crying after the verdict as the recording played. My dad choked and covered his face with his hands. Mom left the table because she couldn't stand it. I heard her crying through the bathroom door as she went in. Although there was more, I stopped recording. My dad sat with his hands over his face for a while. When my mom returned, her eyes were redder, but she seemed angry, instead of sad. She sat next to my dad and hugged him. She informed me she knew something was wrong throughout the case. She thought Dylan hadn't defended us like a professional lawyer, but she never expected this. She'd never imagined such intentional cruelty. Finally, my dad looked up and inquired what happened. I told Dylan that his law company was investigating and would likely dismiss him. I told him Aaron at the Bar Association was trying to suspend Dylan's law license. My dad remained quiet for ages. He stared at the table without speaking. He then said he trusted Dylan entirely. He felt foolish for believing Dylan was trying. I grasped his hand across the table. I told him it wasn't his fault. Dylan intentionally abused his confidence, which tarnished him, not Dad. My dad squeezed my hand but looked broken. I received a call from lawyer Victoria Fields the following afternoon. She stated my mom got her number from a lawyer acquaintance. Victoria said lawyers gossiped about my dad's case. Dylan's confession and actions circulated quickly. Like Dylan, Victoria focused on employment law. She offered to analyze my dad's entire issue for free to see if we could sue the corporation again now that Dylan had destroyed everything. I promised to deliver all paperwork to her workplace. I spent that evening compiling all my dad's case documents, including letters demonstrating age discrimination, performance assessments that were excellent until he hit 60, and trial transcripts revealing Dylan's poor performance. I included Nate's recording and all my Dylan pattern evidence. The next morning, I visited Victoria's downtown office. She resembled my high school principal with silver hair and keen eyes. She spent 2 hours going through every page while I sat across from her desk. She kept noting and shaking her head. Finally, she looked at me and said res judicata prevented us from retrying the case. She suggested we sue Dylan for legal malpractice. She also suggested we may reconsider settlement talks with my dad's former firm now that we knew their win was fraudulent. How long would that take? She answered, it depends on several circumstances. Victoria said she'd contact James Turner, the company's lawyer against my dad. She wanted to watch his reaction to learning Dylan's true actions. Victoria returned my call 4 days later. After she stated she had proof that my dad's lawyer had tossed the case, James agreed to meet with her. She seemed excited about the meeting. It was midday when Tess texted me. It says Dylan was suspended and forced to tidy his office this morning. She stated security took him out and he looked wrecked. I received a snapshot she took from across the parking lot of Dylan lugging a box to his car. I could see his failure from afar. I felt frigid satisfaction looking at that photo. Dylan's career collapsed 4 days after I presented my evidence. It wasn't enough yet. My mom panicked and contacted me that night. Dylan got their address and came to the house, she added. He kept phoning and knocking on the door, requesting to talk to my dad. Mom contacted the cops immediately. Dylan departed before the police arrived and sat in his car outside their house. He was sitting outside staring at their front door, my mom recalled. My dad called Dylan through the window and threatened to file for a restraining order if he didn't leave. Dylan drove away after 2 hours. Mom sounded terrified and upset. She inquired if Dylan would return. I advised her to contact the police and document everything if he returned. Aaron called to update me the next morning. He claimed, the clear evidence accelerated the Bar Association. They requested Dylan's law license be suspended immediately for client sabotage. The hearing was next week. Aaron wanted me to testify during the hearing. I agreed immediately. I wanted to confront Dylan about what he did to my family. Aaron promised to send me the meeting time and location. He warned me Dylan's lawyer would try to discredit me, but the tape made it impossible. I thanked him and hung up, feeling things were finally improving. Next day, I called Victoria to ask about reputable private investigators. She handed me Victor Silva's number, proclaiming him thorough and discreet. I showed Victor everything I had on Dylan at a coffee shop that afternoon. Victor was 50 or older, had gray hair, and listened calmly, making me feel like he understood. He took notes as I outlined Dylan's pattern in the 2 incidents, and said he'd find Dylan's ex-girlfriend to discuss. I gave him her name because Tess informed me, and Victor said he'd start right away. 4 days later, Victor contacted to say he discovered her in another state. He convinced her to talk after explaining why he was phoning. Victor recorded their talk in person with her permission. He played the recording when he returned to meet me, and her voice confirmed my suspicions. She said Dylan took her mother's divorce case 3 years ago, and seemed excited. But suddenly he missed court appearances and forgot to file essential documentation. He advised her mother to accept the husband's settlement, even though it was well below her rights. Dylan claimed he was doing his best, that the case was harder than planned. But his ex-girlfriend believed something was wrong. Dylan appeared calm after losing. She split up with him months later for unrelated reasons, but she always wondered if he'd thrown the case on purpose. She understood everything after hearing about my dad's case. She told Victor she'd been guilty for years, and thought she should have reported her concerns, but she had no proof, and thought others would assume she was a bitter ex. She wanted to help if Dylan would stop doing this to others. Victor helped her draft a lengthy statement about her mother's case. She detailed Dylan's incompetence, and how he discouraged her mother from fighting. She said Dylan seemed almost thrilled when the case ended badly, and made comments about her mother being demanding and tough. Victor meticulously chronicled the 5-page declaration. The Bar Association and Dylan's law business received copies and his interview recording. Aaron called me the same day he received it, and said it was huge since it showed a trend across numerous cases. Dylan's ex-girlfriend's confession gave them 2 victims describing essentially identical behavior. Victor created a professional report with timeframes and evidence comparisons. Only in cases involving potential family links did Dylan's victory rate decrease to 0. It was impossible to ignore or dismiss the pattern as coincidence. Pamela booked her James Turner meeting while Victor finished his inquiry. He agreed to meet at his downtown office after she presented new evidence in my dad's case. Pamela called me after the meeting to say James's reaction was perfect. She played him poker night snippets, where Dylan admitted throwing the case and detailed his in-law exclusion mechanism. Pam reported James's face was absolutely white. He stopped the recording and requested a replay. After a minute of silence, he said he needed to confer with his client about the ethical issues. Pamela stated James appeared astonished and upset. He told her he didn't know Dylan was sabotaging his client, and would have reported it. James said winning a lawsuit because the other attorney purposefully lost weakened the legal system. He stated his client would want to know immediately since a bogus procedure could ruin their reputation. Olivia Chase from my dad's former company's HR called Pamela 4 days later. Olivia claimed James's revelations worried the company's legal team. They wanted to talk to Pamela about solutions before the scandal. Olivia stressed the company's ignorance of Dylan's sabotage, and their concern for their accidental role in a bogus court procedure. Pamela told me this was a positive indicator because it suggested the corporation was worried about their brand and might settle generously to solve issue quietly. She met with Olivia the following week to discuss their resolution. The emergency bar hearing was at 9 Thursday morning. My mom and I drove to the hearing and waited outside. Dad was worried and adjusted his tie. Mom held his hand and said everything would be fine. Aaron arrived with his evidence-filled briefcase, and gave us an update. He suggested Dylan's attorney would try to downplay the poker night tape, but Victor's pattern made it difficult. Dylan was at a table with his counsel when they summoned us into the hearing room. Dylan looked awful. Wrinkled suit, black bags beneath eyes. When we entered, he looked at me, but I ignored him. The 60-year-old hearing officer had sharp eyes, and a no-nonsense demeanor. Aaron began his case with the poker night recording. Dylan's attorney objected, and claimed the recording was out of context and Dylan was drunk. But Aaron played the complete 25 minutes, and there was no way to misread Dylan. He explained his system in full when sober. He chuckled at my dad crying after the verdict. He boasted about his ability to sabotage cases without detection. The recording made the hearing officer's face harder. After it ended, she asked Dylan's attorney to explain what they'd heard. Dylan's attorney requested testimony, and the hearing officer consented. Dylan quickly claimed he'd been intoxicated and embellishing to impress his poker mates on the stand. He denied throwing any cases, and blamed his performance in my dad's case on overwork and stress. Aaron then detailed every trial incompetence. Dylan forgot to record critical evidence. Why? Dylan stuttered, calling it an oversight. Why didn't he prepare my dad for deposition? Dylan suggested my dad speak naturally. He missed many deadlines. Why? Dylan stated he had too many cases. Aaron showed Dylan's schedule to prove he'd prepared much in advance. He produced emails where Dylan deliberately hindered my dad from negotiating a higher deal. His ex-girlfriend said her mother behaved similarly. Dylan couldn't explain anything convincingly. His answers became weaker and defensive. Dylan swore he hadn't damaged my dad's case, but his voice quivered when the hearing officer inquired. Hearing officer took brief recess to assess evidence. She returned and ordered the emergency suspension immediately. Dylan could not practice law during the complete investigation. Dylan's lawyers contended that this would ruin his career and reputation. The hearing officer looked at Dylan and said he damaged his career by sabotaging a client's case for selfish gain. She said the information provided today demonstrated a worrying trend of intentionally injuring trustworthy customers. The poker night recording, ex-girlfriend's testimony, and Dad's incompetence all devastating. It was clear that public safety required emergency action. She scheduled the complete disbarment hearing for 8 weeks and ordered Dylan to tell all his clients that he could no longer represent them. Dylan's face fell. His attorney wanted to add more, but the hearing officer cut him off and stated the ruling was final. Dylan stood up and grabbed his papers with shaky hands. He peered across the room at me to capture my eye, but I ignored him. He ignored my dad's agony like nothing. Mom wrapped her arm across my shoulders, and Dad squeezed my hand. Dylan was motionless at his table as we left the hearing room. Aaron told us in the hallway that this was a huge success, and that emergency suspensions were rarely issued without strong evidence. He said the complete inquiry would continue, but today's hearing showed the direction. Finally, my dad smiled after months. The story broke in legal news within 4 days. The headlines included a Harvard-trained lawyer, suspended for allegedly sabotaging in-law proceedings. Articles cited poker night recording and trend across numerous incidents. Dylan's law firm stated they were undertaking a comprehensive internal inquiry and took attorney misconduct seriously. They said they suspended Dylan immediately after learning of the claims, and were collaborating with the Bar Association. All Dylan's cases were being reviewed to find other victims, the statement stated. My phone started getting texts from strangers, wondering if Dylan Williamson was my ex-boyfriend. I didn't reply to most, but I texted Nate to thank him again for capturing that poker night and sending it to me. He replied back that he'd done the right thing and hoped my dad was okay. Tess wrote that the whole company was shocked and couldn't believe Dylan had done anything so horrible. She added numerous partners were unhappy, since this controversy tarnished the firm's credibility. A week after the controversy broke, Victoria called to say she'd met with James Turner and Olivia Chase from my dad's former employer to discuss settlement alternatives. She said the corporation was apprehensive about being linked to a case where they won because the other lawyer tossed it knowingly. After the Tuesday morning meeting at Victoria's workplace, she said James seemed uncomfortable the whole time. Olivia kept checking her phone like her employer was sending texts every few minutes. Victoria began by playing bits of the poker night recording where Dylan confesses to sabotaging the case. Dylan laughing about my dad, crying after the decision made James crimson. Olivia dropped her head into her hands. James informed Victoria he was shocked. Dylan did poorly at trial, given the overwhelming case evidence. He waited for Dylan to object, divert, or enter the important documents, but Dylan did nothing. James speculated that Dylan was suffering a personal crisis throughout the trial. He would have reported Dylan sabotaging his client if he knew it, since it tarnishes the legal system. Olivia said the corporation worried about the public discovering they won a discrimination case because the victim's counsel purposefully lost. She stated their legal team reviewed everything, and thought my dad's original case was solid and should have won. To prevent unfavorable press, the corporation sought to settle quickly and quietly. Victoria detailed my dad's demands: full pension, 4 years of back pay, and emotional suffering compensation. After 25 minutes, James and Olivia agreed to everything, after calling their employer. Victoria called me after the meeting to say the firm promised to restore my dad's entire pension benefits if he'd never been sacked, 4 years of back pay at his final wage, and emotional distress compensation. She showed me all the numbers and said this was better than what my dad would have won if the trial had gone well. The settlement was more generous because the corporation was keen to resolve issue before reporters asked questions. To tell my folks, I drove straight home. Dad was in the garage, fixing an old lawnmower because he couldn't afford a new one or pay someone to replace it. I invited him inside because Victoria had case news. After seeing me, my mom switched off the stove while making lunch. I explained Victoria's settlement offer and its details. My dad gazed at me like he didn't comprehend for a while. Then he cried. His body shook with sobbing. My mom cried and hugged him. Dad kept repeating he couldn't believe it, after months of thinking he'd lost everything. He stated Dylan's actions made him sure he'd have to sell the house and work until he died. He tried to gather himself at the kitchen table while I sat with him. He said he had nightmares about losing the house every night. He dreamed of informing my mom they had to move into a little apartment, and he couldn't retire. The settlement allowed him to retire with enough money to keep the house. His only goal was to retire with dignity after 19 years of employment. My mom poured coffee, and we waited over an hour, while Dad analyzed everything. I was repeatedly asked if the firm agreed to everything. I showed him Victoria's settlement terms email. He read 3 times. Isabel directly called my cell phone days later. Dylan's law firm fired him for cause after their investigation, she said. She said Dylan wouldn't get severance or benefits. The firm uncovered willful client sabotage and professional misconduct. Isabel told me they were reviewing every Dylan case to identify more victims. She was furious when she said Dylan had ruined the firm's reputation. Dylan ruined their trust-based company, she alleged. The firm was taking this so seriously, they engaged independent investigators to analyze Dylan's whole career. In 2 weeks, investigators identified 2 additional suspicious Dylan performances. Both cases featured clients with family ties to Dylan's girlfriends. Dylan defended a woman's uncle in a contract dispute 4 years ago. Dylan hardly prepared and the uncle lost everything. Another case included a girlfriend's stepfather's business dispute from 2 years ago. Same missed deadlines, forgotten documents, and poor performance. Isabel said the business was contacting previous clients for assistance and submitting everything to the Bar Association. Even though it happened years ago, she wanted to make amends. After Victoria reviewed everything with my dad again, he accepted the settlement offer. The company processed everything quickly to complete before anyone found out. My dad received full back salary and emotional damages within 2 weeks. His pension benefits were restored in the business system, like he was never sacked. He could start collecting his pension immediately, since he was already past the age. I accompanied Dad to the bank for the check deposit. He kept staring at the deposit slip, expecting it to vanish. After the bank manager praised him, Dad smiled for the first time in months. That night, my parents took me to a fancy restaurant they never would have gone to due to money concerns. Dad requested a premium steak and wine from the waitress. I saw Clara, a therapist. To process everything, my normal doctor prescribed it after I told her I was having difficulty sleeping, and kept replaying Dylan's confession in my thoughts. Clara's office was quiet near downtown. She had soft chairs and tissues on every table. Clara requested the full tale in our first session. I spent almost an hour discussing Dylan, my dad's case, the sabotage, and everything that followed. Clara took notes without interrupting. Her conclusion that Dylan's treachery was severe made sense, and I was struggling to process it. Dylan was good at manipulating and concealing his genuine motives, she said. Clara explained, trusting someone you love doesn't make you weak or stupid. Dylan acted trustworthy to mask his true intentions. Clara helped me separate my Dylan rage from my relationship feelings over the next few sessions. I kept telling myself I was stupid for overlooking the signs. Clara noted that Dylan's system relied on appearing normal while committing crimes. She felt Dylan's character was the issue, not trust or love. Clara provided me techniques to distinguish good connections from manipulation. I learned about future red flags. She helped me understand that Dylan's treachery taught me to follow my senses when something feels wrong. Victor called a few weeks later, to report his findings. He stretched his report across a downtown coffee shop table when I met him. Numbers were damning. Dylan had a 96% victory record overall, but that dropped to 0 when the client had a family linked to his date. Victor had found 4 occurrences of this pattern. Victor found my dad's case, the ex-girlfriend's mother's divorce, and 2 others through court records and interviews. Dylan demonstrated the same suspected incompetence, missing deadlines, unprepared court appearances, and failure to enter essential evidence in each case. Victor even unearthed emails where Dylan discussed one case with a colleague, proving he grasped the winning strategy but failed to use it at trial. The 50-page report included illustrations, timelines, and statistical comparisons. Victor said this was his clearest evidence of willful misbehavior in 20 years as an investigator. The following day, I submitted Aaron at the Bar Association the full report. Aaron called me 4 days later, energized. The bar's thorough inquiry confirmed Victor's independent analysis. Dylan intentionally ruined several clients' cases for selfish gain. The proof was overwhelming. Aaron explained that they questioned witnesses, reviewed court transcripts, and examined Dylan's case history. Every evidence showed willful malfeasance, not incompetence. The Bar Association recommended permanent disbarment without reinstatement. Aaron said this was the harshest penalty for attorneys who abuse client confidence. Dylan's frequent infractions and premeditation made rehabilitation impossible, he added. The formal disbarment hearing was early December. The Bar Association wrote to invite me to give an impact statement at Dylan's hearing. His identified victims were all invited. I wrote and rewrote my statement at my kitchen table for hours. I focused on Dylan's betrayal of my parents and family, not my relationship with him. Dad's 19 years of loyalty and complete trust in Dylan were described. Dylan used that trust to damage Dad's finances and peace of mind. I wrote about Dad's insomnia and Mom's house loss fears. I described the anguish of watching my father cry after the verdict, unaware that his lawyer had rigged the outcome. I kept my tone neutral and let the events speak for themselves. The statement was 3 single-spaced pages. Bar Association offices hosted the hearing in a sophisticated conference room. I arrived early with my folks in Victoria. Dylan was at a table with his elderly attorney, who was shuffling papers and appearing uncomfortable. The panel had 3 attorneys and 2 public members behind a raised podium. This was no ordinary courtroom. It was formal and serious. The panel chair started the hearing and described it. Impact statements were read by each victim. Dylan and his counsel would testify before the panel deliberated. First I went. I held my declaration with shaky hands. The voice remained steady. I read all I wrote about Dad trusting Dylan, and how it was used against him. I stated Dylan's case wasn't lost due to incompetence. For his personal benefit, he devastated my dad's finances and peace of mind. I mentioned how Dad had to select groceries or utilities some weeks. I described his post-trial melancholy and worry. After finishing, the panel chair thanked me, and I sat down. Hand squeezed by Dad. Next, Dylan's ex-girlfriend testified via video call from out of state. She recalled how Dylan stopped her mother from negotiating a fair divorce settlement. Dylan kept pushing her to accept little amounts, even though her mother deserved large assets after 30 years of marriage. He arrived in mediation unprepared, and failed to prove her husband's concealed income. The ex-girlfriend cracked when she revealed how her mother lived in a small apartment while her ex-husband maintained the property and retirement money. She spent years blaming herself for choosing a lousy lawyer for her parents. She realized Dylan did it intentionally after discovering the pattern. Victor identified other victims who submitted written comments that the panel chair read. Each described suspicious incompetence in family matters. Panel debated for 48 minutes. While we sat silently, I watched the wall clock tick forward. Dylan regarded the table. Dylan didn't respond to his attorney's whispers. The chair communicated the panel's judgment immediately upon return. Permanent disbarment without reinstatement. When the chair explained their reasoning, the room was quiet. Dylan's actions betrayed the attorney-client relationship. Personal gain motivated his sabotage of many clients. The pattern demonstrated frequent infractions and premeditation. The legal profession would not allow such behavior. The chair said rehabilitation couldn't be judged when an attorney intentionally damages clients as part of a system. Dylan lost his law license instantly. Dylan's face during the disbarment was watched. He appeared destroyed. All the arrogance and smugness from his apartment that night was gone. His counsel stood forward to argue for suspension over disbarment. He said Dylan was sorry and deserved redemption. Panel chair interrupted him. Deliberate sabotage made rehabilitation impossible to judge, she added. Dylan consistently misled trusting clients. The verdict was final. Dylan's attorney took his documents and departed through a side door. I felt only chilly satisfaction seeing him go. Victoria sued Dylan for malpractice the following week on Dad's behalf. His sabotage caused emotional and financial suffering. Thus the lawsuit sought damages. Victoria said this was unrelated to the company deal. That settlement addressed wrongful firing. This case targeted Dylan's professional carelessness and intentional wrongdoing. She said malpractice lawsuits take years, but Dylan's disbarment and strong evidence may advance it quickly. Father signed all documents at Victoria's office. He looked exhausted yet determined. Mom informed Victoria it wasn't about money anymore. It meant ensuring Dylan faced all consequences. Within 2 weeks, Dylan's malpractice insurer contacted Victoria. They examined all disbarment hearing and Victor's investigation material. Their attorney assured Victoria they wouldn't fight the accusation. Dylan's intentional wrongdoing violated his policy, but they wanted to settle swiftly to prevent litigation. They proposed a settlement that covered Dad's original and new legal bills. The settlement also compensated Dad for his emotional anguish. Victoria increased the final sum by $22,000. Dad took the deal. Within a month, the insurance company processed everything. My parents took a 2-week vacation to a seaside resort they'd always desired with settlement money. The weather was cold and gray at home when they went in early January. Dad emailed me images every day of him relaxing on the beach, tan, and having gourmet dinners and sunset walks. Dad was finally sleeping through the night without trial nightmares, Mom texted. He grinned more in one vacation week than in the previous year, she claimed. They returned, rejuvenated and joyful, discussing a spring trip. Dad said the vacation felt like the first time in ages since he could enjoy life without worry. I started apartment hunting 4 days, following their return. Dylan picked me up for dates, and stayed over at my old house too much. Every corner brought back his words or actions. I discovered a one-bedroom across town at a park I'd never visited with him. Big windows and wooden floors graced the older structure. The day I saw the lease, I signed. Moving day was tiring yet fun. I spent 4 days unpacking boxes and organizing furniture, after hiring movers for big goods. Dylan informed me about his Harvard classes on the old couch, so I bought a new one. I chose drapes, kitchenware, and wall art. Everything was mine, not his. The place felt like home after a week. I could walk in without thinking about him every 5 minutes. Tess called me one afternoon while I hung pictures. She said, Dylan's firm changed drastically after the release. They now need 2 attorney review for cases involving firm lawyers' relatives. Senior partners checked case files for poor representation in quarterly performance assessments. Tess said the management partners took serious action because of my willingness to come forward. She said most people would have kept silent to avoid trouble, but speaking up definitely saved Dylan from undermining further cases. The company wanted me to know they were serious about fixing Dylan's long-standing issues. A letter arrived at my parents' place 4 weeks following disbarment. Mom sent it to my new address. I didn't identify the return label's name from a 2-hour-away city. Victor found a handwritten note from a woman claiming to be another victim. She said that Dylan represented her in an employment case 5 years ago while dating her daughter. The case should have been easy, but Dylan barely defended her and she lost. She thought her case was poor or bad luck for years. Her burden was lightened when she discovered Dylan's pattern. She thanked me for exposing him, and said she was helping Victoria file a malpractice lawsuit. The letter showed me how many people Dylan damaged, and how many blamed themselves, not him. With his full pension restored, Dad retired in March. He bought golf equipment and gardening supplies in his first week of retirement. He joined the Public Courses Senior League and grew tomatoes and peppers in the backyard. Mom emailed me images of him drinking coffee on the terrace every morning, looking peaceful and tan. His call came on a Sunday afternoon when I was grocery shopping. He said he was happier after everything. Years of working with low-valued individuals had progressively killed his spirit. He could now enjoy his days without worrying about performance assessments and office politics. He had a lighter voice than ever. A work acquaintance introduced me to my first date in April. Clara helped me distinguish healthy relationships from Dylan's manipulation. During our session before the date, she reminded me that Dylan's betrayal taught me to follow my instincts when something feels wrong. The date was normal, although the guy was polite. We went out twice more before agreeing we weren't compatible. I had several dates in the following months. Some performed better. Clara made me realize I was watching for red signs and how people treated me. I didn't rush or ignore warning indications like before. Gavin contacted early May. Some legal ethics professors asked the Bar Association to incorporate Dylan's case in their seminars. Disbarment became a cautionary tale in the legal world about practitioners betraying client trust. Gavin informed me they were creating training materials using Dylan's case to demonstrate significant wrongdoing and its consequences. He said, "My case was used in legal circles to demonstrate why ethics regulations are so tight." In June, I met Nate at a coffee shop near my new apartment. He was meeting someone for his podcast and we talked for 25 minutes. He told me the poker group cut Dylan off after everything came out. Nobody wanted to be linked with him. Nate was pleased he filmed that night because staying silent would have made him part of Dylan's nastiness. He nearly deleted the recording since it felt like betraying a buddy. He knew Dylan had misled everyone who trusted him, and that friendship didn't mean shielding someone from their fate. Nate appeared glad to hear my dad was retired and doing well. This strengthened my relationship with my parents. Family dinners every couple of weeks let us relax without the tension of the preceding year. One night while washing dishes, Mom told me she was proud of how I handled everything. She claimed many would have collapsed or been angry. I used it to get Dad justice. We discovered we could suffer awful betrayals and overcome them. Dad started asking my opinion more and treating me like an adult, not his kid. Everything became more adult and respectable. Dylan sought closure through a mutual acquaintance in July. The acquaintance called to relay the message, and I declined to talk to Dylan. The next session with Clara taught me that closure comes from within, not from talking to betrayed people. Dylan wanted closure to feel better, not to heal me, she said. I owed him nothing. He didn't need to approve my recuperation. Learning to break up and move on without his explanation or apology was crucial to recovery. It felt good to decline. The boss called me into her office in August. I thought I'd done something wrong, but she told me I was promoted to senior analyst with a big raise. Since last year, my work had improved, she said. I was more assertive in meetings, and better at making decisions under pressure. Dylan's complete experience improved job performance. I gained confidence in my judgment and stood up for what was right. Those skills carried over into my working life. The promotion felt like confirmation that I'd evolved from everything that happened instead of letting it break me down. Dad called me in September to say he was considering what to do with settlement money. He planned to start a small fund for wrongly sacked workers, without counsel. He told Victoria about how many wrongly fired workers never sue because legal bills are too high. Victoria's firm decided to join with him to screen cases and identify situations where they could genuinely make a difference. Dad paid $60,000 into the fund, and Victoria's firm promised to handle cases at lower rates for persons the fund selected. They allowed workers to apply with termination facts and evidence. Dad assessed applications himself and helped decide which situations had the strongest merit. The first individual they helped was a woman in her 50s, who got fired immediately before her benefits kicked in. Within 3 months, Victoria settled her case. Dad rang me after that first triumph, sounding joyful than in years. He found purpose in helping others avoid what he went through. Over the next few months, the fund aided 6 additional persons. The Bar Association sent a big packet to my apartment 2 weeks later. Dylan's final report detailed every sabotage found. The 40-page report included my dad's case and Dylan's 3 cases. When clients were related to women he dated, his victory percentage dropped to 0. All victims testified, and poker night remarks were used. The report concluded with policy suggestions to avoid similar scenarios. Attorneys' family relationships should be properly monitored by law companies. The Bar Association should require more conflict disclosure from attorneys. Clients should understand their second opinion rights. Aaron's handwritten comment on the main page thanked me for coming forward, and that my courage had led to major reforms. Reading the report was weird. Documenting everything in official terms made it more real. Dylan's acts were immortalized. Future lawyers' ethics classes would examine this case. The report was in my desk drawer, and I glanced at it when I needed to recall that speaking up mattered. Aaron invited me to a legal ethics conference in November to discuss professional misconduct in my dad's case. I almost didn't go since hearing strangers discuss what happened was unsettling. During our week-long session, Clara encouraged me. She suggested hearing legal experts analyze the matter to help me understand my actions. Nearly 200 lawyers and law students attended the downtown hotel meeting. Law professor presented Dylan's case in the ethics panel. While I sat in the back, her timeline showed how Dylan's sabotage went unnoticed for years. She advised clients and colleagues on danger indicators. A number of lawyers questioned how to avoid similar problems in their firms. One young lawyer proposed new case review methods. Another explored improving client complaint channels. Listening to them use my dad's pain as a lesson opportunity was uncomfortable at first, but I recognized it was right. Dylan injured others, and was now protecting prospective clients. A different justice than his disbarment. I left that conference feeling like I'd contributed to the legal profession, even though I wasn't a lawyer. Nate called me with the recording a year after that poker night, changing my life. I managed a small staff after another promotion. Dad worked on the money and played golf 3 times a week after retiring. Mom had resumed art classes, and seemed more calm than in decades. Family dinners every 2 weeks were easy and comforting. We stopped talking about Dylan unless someone mentioned the fund or a case it helped with. Later that night in Dylan's place, my rage had subsided. I wasn't angry or bitter. I was content knowing Dylan would never practice law again, and couldn't injure anyone like Dad. Justice wasn't always speedy or faultless, but when you gathered proof and didn't retract, it worked. I learned to trust my instincts when something felt wrong. I learnt that doing the right thing was worth the pain. Most significantly, I learnt that betrayal doesn't have to break you if you use your suffering to go forward. Life was great now. My new boyfriend respected my family. Dad was content and wealthy. Our family overcame a tragic event and grew stronger. Every time Dad's name appeared on a settlement check for a fund client, I was glad I'd exposed Dylan's lies. Dylan didn't get away with injuring others. That knowing gave me more serenity than his apologies. I asked my daughter to share her wedding with her pregnant sister. She refused. So I slapped her. Now she's erased me from her life forever. Anna, who is 28 years old, and Lily, who is 25 years old, are my two children. From their early years, they had changed. Anna was the independent one who didn't require constant instruction on how to accomplish tasks. In contrast, Lily was more brittle. I don't say it with disdain, but she started exhibiting health issues, nervousness, and trouble adjusting to school about kindergarten. What any mother would do, I did. I gave her more of my time, care, attention, and even money. What more was there for me to do? When Anna was a teenager, she once complained about it. She said it was unfair and questioned why Lily could use her makeup without asking, or why I had purchased new makeup for her from Sephora. "You're sisters, you should support each other," was my standard response. And that was sufficient for a time. We provided them with living expenses and tuition assistance while they were in college. The first to gain independence was Anna. Years ago, she moved in with her lover. Both of them are financially prudent and have solid jobs. But Lily still resides with us. She has struggled with lovers, changed jobs frequently, and hasn't fully settled in. We were all overjoyed when Anna said she was engaged. Daniel, her fiancé, is a decent man. 6 months later, a small but tasteful wedding was planned at a beautiful upstate vineyard. We planned to contribute roughly $10,000, a symbolic but significant chunk of the budget. The rest she took care of. You could see how happy she was with every call and every visit to taste cakes or check out venues. Lily requested to talk to me alone up to 2 months before to the wedding. She was shaking. She informed me that she was expecting a child and that in order to do things properly, she and her boyfriend Ryan wanted to be married before the baby was born. She claimed that they had no strategy, no money, and no idea how. She requested my assistance. At first, I wanted to tell her that we didn't have enough to continue helping Anna and that it was impossible. I couldn't stop thinking about it after she said, "What if we use Anna's venue just once?" I didn't say, "I don't want my child to be born out of wedlock." I had a conversation with my hubby that evening. He seemed to know what was going to happen as he gazed at me. "No," he responded. "There would be mayhem." He continued, "We could ask if they'd agree to a joint wedding, it wouldn't be that crazy." I didn't respond, instead I went to bed. His voice was low, like someone throwing forth a suggestion they know they shouldn't. I couldn't sleep though. I kept thinking about Lily, the baby, and how Anna already had everything worked out and that perhaps, just for this one occasion, she might relax a bit. We were only going to ask Anna to make room for us to share, not to postpone her wedding or vanish. Siblings do that, don't they? I organized a brunch for the family. I thoughtfully arranged the fresh fruit salad, mimosas, and Anna's favorite quiche. Even Lily tried to get ready, although it was obvious she was anxious. When Anna is enthused about something, she always comes with that contagious energy. Pictures of the location, her dress fitting, and the cake design were all over her phone. I cut her off as she continued to talk, her voice full of joy. I took her hand and informed her that I needed to share something significant with her. I told them Lily was expecting. After a moment of hesitation, Anna smiled, congratulated her, gave her a hug, and assured her that she would be there for her if she needed anything. I said, "This is going to be fine." Then I added, "We want to ask you for something." Anna nodded, but scowled. I informed her of Lily's predicament, including her wish to get married before the baby was delivered and her financial difficulties. I inquired as to whether her sister might be able to use the location for her own wedding. Anna took a moment to take it in and blinked. Slowly she said, "You want me to cancel my wedding?" No, just for your sister to get married that day, in your place," I said. "You already have your life organized. She's just starting out. And the baby. We don't want him to be born out of wedlock." Lily's voice was shaking as she pleaded, "Please, Anna, not everything is about you. Everything goes well for you. I need this." The silence was agonizing until she whispered, "No, I'm sorry. I can't." "No," Anna said again, remaining composed. "It's not fair. I've planned this for 6 months. It's my wedding, something I've dreamed of forever. I can't just disappear." I made an effort to defuse the situation. I assured her that Lily would be appreciative, that the infant deserved better, and that she had to comprehend as the bigger sister. She responded, "I'm not doing it," and got to her feet. "And if you're going to continue with this, I'd rather leave." But Lily got up before she went. She shouted, "You're so selfish. You only think about yourself. You have everything. What does it cost you to help me for once?" I made an effort to soothe her. I reminded Anna that Lily had no one else and that we couldn't afford another wedding. Dad is contributing 30% of your wedding budget, so I have a right to it too, Lily shouted out. As though she had been smacked, Anna's jaw dropped wide. She said, "All right. You think you have any right to my wedding?" before leaving with a final dejected glance. We sat there. The air was heavy with tension. Lily was in tears. This shouldn't have happened this way, was all I could think. However, there remained a path, a more sensible choice. Perhaps she could share if she couldn't give it all up. That word felt reasonable and fair. We only wanted to enjoy her wedding as sisters and a family, not ask her to give it up. How difficult could that be? When I suggested we speak with Anna once more, my husband gave me a worried look. He warned me that we might have gone too far, and that we were pushing her too hard. But when Lily gazed at me with those beseeching eyes every day, as though everything relied on me, I couldn't give up. So I made lunch again. I told Anna that we only wanted to chat and that we wanted to apologize, but we weren't going to force her to cancel the wedding. Anna arrived grinning tensely. We didn't talk as we ate. Nothing more than a few kind remarks were made. I ended by telling her that we were sorry, that we understood her viewpoint, and that we wanted to make things clear. I introduced the new proposal as soon as she agreed and accepted the apology. "So, what would you think about sharing the wedding with your sister?" Anna gave me a look like she didn't get it. "What do you mean, share?" "On the same day, at the same event, you would tie the knot, you first, Lily second, or vice versa. It isn't that difficult. We simply change a few things about the timetables, and we can even change everyone's honeymoon tickets. We would work things out." "Mom, are you being serious?" "Yes, it's for your sister. She's sensitive, you know, and your nephew is on the way. We thought it would be nice, a moment to bring you two together." She placed her cutlery on the table. "Mom, we already have everything ready. Every minute, every vendor, every reservation. It's not as easy as you think. And besides, it's my wedding, not a group event." Lily sprang out of her silence. "See? I told you she wouldn't even agree to this. She doesn't care about anyone but herself." I made another attempt to soothe her. I explained that it was only a suggestion and that there was no need to argue, adding that Anna could at least assist by making a few changes. I even proposed delaying the date a little if it would make planning easier. Anna got to her feet at that point, clearly in pain. "You really thought I would accept this? That I would give you my wedding because you say so? You know what this has cost me, what it means to me?" Lily screamed and cut her off. "Everything costs you. It's always about you. You don't know what it's like to have to start from scratch." Anna looked across at me. "And you, Mom? Did you ever think about what I want? Or do I just have to watch you choose Lily every single time?" I didn't consider it. It was a desperate reaction, an urge. I gave her a slap. The hush that followed was deafening, yet the slap itself wasn't difficult. Anna's expression was one of deep disappointment rather than rage or tears. "I won't do it," she murmured quietly. "And if you still think you can come to my wedding after this, go ahead. But my sister is not invited, not even as a guest." She then departed. Lily was in tears. My hubby was stunned. And all I could do was hope that she would reconsider, that there was still time. Because after all, what daughter could possibly exclude her own mother? It would be unkind, unyielding, and heartless of anyone to deny their own mother access to such a significant occasion. I clung to that. I reassured myself that although Anna was upset, she would eventually move past it. That she was furious when she said it. That she would be anticipating our arrival. She secretly hoped to see us there. Thus nothing was cancelled. For Lily we had a new outfit designed that was sophisticated, yet subtle. She needed to appear presentable, even if she wouldn't be the bride. My spouse did not say yes or no as he silently observed us. His response to my question about his plans was simply, "They're not going to stop me from seeing my daughter get married." We all got dressed on the wedding day. As though it were an indisputable pass, I clung to the invitation. To prove to her that everything could be worked out, we came early and were prepared to take our seats. However, the security guy halted us at the vineyard's entrance. "Names, please." We provided them. "I'm sorry, you're not on the list." With a trembling laugh, I showed him the invitation. "We're the parents of the bride." After checking a tablet, the guard glanced inside before turning back to face us. She was very clear. "You and your daughter are not authorized to enter." With a scowl, my husband pulled out his phone and dialed Anna. She showed up a few minutes later, looking stunning and flawless in white, but with icy cold eyes. She declared, "I'm not letting you in." My husband started to wonder. What are you saying? You're going to leave us out here? Yes. I don't want you to ruin my day. You already tried once. I don't want to share my wedding, and I don't want to see you here. Not Mom, not Lily. In response, he responded, but we put money down. 30% of the budget was our $10,000. Anna answered, so what? You want it back? Fine, I'll pay you back. But I'm not going to let this happen again. This day is mine. I don't want blackmail. I don't want scenes. Lily let out a scream. So you ruin everything. You can never do anything for me. She tried to push her as she ran toward her. She was stopped by the guard. The guests pivoted. Numerous people took out their phones, some of which were recording. Like a horde of judging bees, the murmur intensified into a dense hum. My spouse stepped in, dragged us to the car, and drew us aside. Lily was crying. I yelled that she couldn't treat us like way, and that it wasn't fair. Before shutting the venue door, Anna remarked, and you, Mom. As of today, forget about the money I sent you every month to help with bills. It's over. I yelled, you can't do that. You're so selfish. Say what you want, but you brought this entirely on yourself. Then she vanished. Without saying anything, my spouse started the car. He locked himself in his study when we returned home, leaving me in the dining room with my rumpled dress, my makeup all over the place, and the awful knowledge that my daughter had erased me. The following day I felt that way, as though Anna had grabbed a Sharpie and without thinking twice, crossed my name out of her existence. I awoke in a house I had never seen before. My husband didn't even look at me, let alone talk to me. Lily remained in her room. The quiet weighed as much as if it were composed of cement. I had no idea what to do. Then, out of habit, I was browsing through my phone when I came across the message. A Facebook group notice from my neighborhood. A video link with the question, did you guys see this? It lasted just 2 minutes. I knew what it was without having to watch it. Nevertheless, I watched it. We were captured on a shaky but merciless phone as we arrived at the venue. Me yelling, Lily attempting to attack her sister, the security stepping in, and Anna's icy gaze. With the headline, Toxic Mom Tries to Crash Daughter's Wedding to Force a Second Bride, someone had posted it to TikTok. Furthermore, it had gone viral. Thousands of likes. There were thousands of comments. The comments included reaction videos, memes, and even a Reddit thread with screenshots and theories, such as, what a horrible family. The other sister seems like a sociopath. Anna is a queen for keeping her composure. As like we were simply another episode of a cheesy reality show, they were analyzing my life and my choices. I went in search of Lily. Her legs were drawn up to her chest as she sat on the floor of her bedroom, staring blankly. I sat next to her and talked to her. She remained silent. After an hour, someone knocked on the door. It was her boyfriend, Ryan. With hope, I allowed him in. I believed he had come to reassure her that everything would be all right. However, he hadn't. He glanced at Lily and then at me while he stood in the center of the corridor. He spoke in a stern, controlled tone. Did you really think that would work? Lily stared at him in confusion. I knew it was crazy. That's why I didn't go. I thought it would be another tantrum. But you did it. You tried to crash your sister's wedding. You've become a public laughingstock. What kind of mother does that? What kind of fiancé? Lily broke down in tears. She informed him that she was desperate and that she did it for them and the baby because she didn't want to lose him. He gave a head shake. I'll take care of the child. I won't leave you alone with that. But I don't want to marry you. I don't want to build a family on manipulation and shame. I'm not that kind of man. And you're not the woman I thought I knew. He didn't turn around. Lily didn't call for him or scream. As like she already knew it was going to happen, she simply let him go. Then she collapsed. Later, I discovered her seated on the floor in the shower, the water rushing continuously over her fully clothed body. She was whispering something I couldn't understand. She pulled me away when I knelt down to give her a hug. You ruined everything. I was sliced like a knife by the statement. I tried to defend myself by telling her that I was simply attempting to assist and that my actions were motivated by love. However, I no longer even believed in myself. My husband summoned me into his study that evening. He shut the door. His statements were final, but he didn't yell. If you interfere in Anna's life again, if you make one more move, I'm filing for divorce. And this time it won't be a threat, it will be a decision. I was at a loss for words. I nodded because I was exhausted, not because I agreed. He hasn't talked about the wedding, touched me, or slept in our bed since. As though words are not as effective as silence as a form of punishment. And I'm left here, watching Lily disappear into the night, thinking about Anna, who is still on her honeymoon, grinning in pictures while everyone applauds her for standing up for her marriage and her honor, and wondering whether I was the one who went too far at some point throughout this whole ordeal. For days, I've been thinking the same thing. When did I cross it? Was it when I requested that Anna postpone her wedding? I raised my hand and struck her for the first time since she was a child when I demanded that she share it. Or was it earlier, when I unconsciously concluded that one daughter needed more assistance than the other? Although the house is quiet, it is not serene. I hardly breathe the same air as my hubby. Since the night he told me it was enough, he hasn't given me a glance. I'm not sure if he's forgiven me, or if he's simply holding out for the ideal opportunity to strike me. As if I don't exist, I watch him go about his day, sip his coffee, and head off to work. In my own house, I've turned into a ghost. Lily has also changed. She hasn't taken a shower in 2 days, hardly speaks, and hasn't left the house since Ryan left her. Her cheeks are hollow and her eyes are sunken. There are moments when I hear her mumbling to the unborn child. At times, she simply lies in bed and gazes up at the ceiling. One night I tried to get close to her. I wanted to touch her hair and handed her tea. Without glancing at me, she said, "Stop looking at me like that. Like you're the victim. You pushed me into this." I was at a loss for words because perhaps she was correct. Anna has not phoned or written. I'm not sure if she considers me. I don't think so. She told me to forget her and that she had erased me when I last saw her, wearing a white outfit. I'm still missing her. I've sent her at least 5 emails that I've since erased. I attempted to explain in each one that I didn't know how to manage it, that I did it out of love, and that I wanted to support her sister. I never sent them though because every attempt sounded like a pretext, like more manipulation. The video is still going viral. They now claim that an interview will be featured on a local entertainment news program. Someone got in touch with a visitor. They are referring to it as the botched, double wedding drama. As though I were a cartoon character, a villain from a soap opera, they call me the poisonous mother. Perhaps I am. Perhaps I simply didn't realize it until it was too late, but I always was. I've begun speaking softly to myself. I pose questions to myself that no one can respond to. Did I treat Anna unfairly? Did I become partial because I felt sorry for one daughter? Did I genuinely want to keep Lily safe for her sake? Or was it only to avoid feeling like a bad mother? I no longer have any certainty. All that is evident is that I lost something that cannot be replaced: my spouse, my girls, my reputation, and myself. And now I'm here, writing this, not because I think I deserve sympathy or expect to be saved, but because, despite everything, I still find myself wondering, am I the terrible guy? If you enjoyed it, please remember to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. I'll see you in the next stories. My stepmom spied on my finances to demand I fund her son's college. Instead, I exposed 8 years of lies that destroyed my father's reputation. Subreddit. I was kicked out at the age of 18, made a life for myself, and then took in my brother when he faced similar circumstances. After 8 years of silence, my stepmother discovered I was paying for my brother's education, and my father called to demand that I also pay for my stepbrother's tuition. What ensued was a complete shit show. Here's what happened. My mother died 11 years ago, when I, a 30-year-old male, was 17 and my younger brother Noah was 10. Cancer. And seeing her waste away for 2 years broke something in all of us. Dad handled it like a true champion, essentially dropping out mentally about month 18 of her therapy. Mom hadn't been cold for 3 days when Dad was on his phone, downloading Tinder instead of making funeral arrangements. I found him skimming through profiles as I was attempting to compose Mom's obituary because he couldn't find the perfect wording. Yeah. It turns out that the correct words were, recently widowed, ready to mingle. 3 months later, Dad confesses that he has been seeing someone. Her name was Monica. And before you ask, she did live up to every cliché associated with the moniker. She was a bottle blonde suburban mom who drove a white Escalade and held strong views on organic stuff. She arrived with her own baggage, an 8-year-old boy named Ethan who appeared to have never seen the sun and had the personality of soggy bread. But here's the kicker. Monica appeared great at first. She laughed at my idiotic jokes, remembered Noah's preference for extra cheese on his pizza, and did not instantly try to remodel Mom's house with live laugh love signs. I genuinely believed this may work. Perhaps we could be a blended family sitcom in which everyone learns good lessons and hugs it out at the conclusion of each episode. No, I was mistaken. 6 months after Mom's death, Dad delivers the bombshell at dinner. Monica and I are getting married. He announces it as if it were a dentist's visit. And Ethan's going to be your new brother. Monica is sitting there with a phony smile. Noah looks at me with wide eyes, and I can almost feel the wheels moving in his head. When? I inquired, because someone had to. Next month. We're thinking a small ceremony, just family. The wedding was everything you'd expect, tacky, rushed, and embarrassing as hell. But the real fun began when they moved in together. See, Dad owned Mom's house, which is where Noah and I grew up. Monica took one look at it and decided it required a woman's touch, which presumably meant eliminating all evidence of Mom's presence. Initially, it was little issues. Mom's coffee mugs vanished, replaced by a generic set Monica purchased at Target. The throw cushions Mom had knitted were replaced with these unattractive beige ones. Mom's recipe box somehow ended up in the yard sale pile. I caught it just in time. These are Mom's recipes, I informed Monica when I discovered the package marked for sale. Oh, I just thought since I do all the cooking now, she replied with an innocent shrug that deceived no one. Yeah, well, you thought wrong. I brought the package inside my room and never let it leave my sight again. But the recipes were only the beginning. Then came the photos. Monica began sorting the photo albums, so any pictures of Mom were relegated to boxes in the attic. What about the family portraits on the mantel? Suddenly, they all showed the new blended family, with Mom airbrushed out of history. And Ethan. Ethan was the golden child from the beginning. This child couldn't wipe his own ass without receiving a standing ovation. Failed a math test? Oh, Ethan's more of a creative type. Did something break? Accidents happen. Meanwhile, if Noah failed to put his dishes in the dishwasher, it was a federal case. I tried to act as a buffer. When Monica made snarky remarks about Noah's attitude, I would redirect. When Dad canceled Noah's school functions to attend Ethan's games, I'd go instead. When Ethan accidentally ruined Noah's belongings, I would replace them with my own money from my hardware store employment. However, I was waging a losing battle. The house rules became ludicrous. Ethan has his own bathroom. Noah shared the entire one with his guests. Ethan had first pick of TV time. Ethan's pals were always welcome, but we needed to get permission 24 hours in advance. It's about learning respect and responsibility, Monica would explain. When I called out the double standards, things went pretty bad around my senior year. I was turning 18 in 3 months, and Dad began making statements about me getting ready for the real world and learning to be independent. At first, I assumed it was just standard dad things. Then I overheard a conversation that altered everything. I was returning from my friend Ryan's place when I heard Dad and Monica conversing in the kitchen. I can't afford to keep supporting them forever, Monica said. I know, but they're my kids. And Ethan's your kid too. Now we need to think about his future, his college fund. You can't keep splitting resources between 3 boys when one of them isn't even really yours. I stood in the corridor, heart hammering. My own father was debating kicking me out, as if we were unwelcome roommates. That's when I knew we weren't related anymore. We were impediments to Monica's beautiful little nuclear family fantasies, and Dad was willing to give his own blood to make his new wife happy. I crept upstairs and found Noah doing his schoolwork. He looked up when I walked in, and I must have looked like I saw a ghost because he instantly said, "What's wrong? How can you explain that the man who is meant to protect you is actively working to get rid of you?" "Nothing, buddy," I said, sitting on his bed. "Just promise me something, okay? No matter what happens, you know you can always count on me. Always." He nodded, bewildered but trusting. "Are you going somewhere?" I couldn't respond. On my 18th birthday, Monica made dinner. Ethan's favorite meal, of course, and there was this uncomfortable cake with "Happy Birthday" scrawled in grocery store icing. Dad gave me a $50 card and asked me to remain after supper. "Son, you're a man now. Time to start making your own way in the world. Your mother and I always planned that once you kids turned 18, you'd become independent. Character building." "What exactly are you saying, Dad?" "Time for you to find your own place, get your own job, start your adult life." "So you're kicking me out on my 18th birthday?" "I'm launching you into adulthood. There's a difference." Yes, there was. "When?" "End of the week. Gives you time to figure out arrangements." I walked upstairs to call Ryan. He answered the second ring. "Dude, what's up?" "Ryan, I need a favor, a big one." Ryan and his father, David, arrived at my door about 20 minutes later. David was everything my father wasn't: solid, dependable, The type of guy who coached Little League not for the glory, but because children needed great role models. When Mom was unwell, David drove me to practice because Dad was too busy at work. Ryan and I had been best friends since we were 7. His mother used to joke that they should just adopt me because I spent more time at their house than my own. After Mom died, the joke began to feel more like a prediction. So, when I recounted the scenario, David remarked, "Your father is kicking you out 3 months before you graduate high school because you turned 18. It's character building," I said, and I could hear the venom in my tone. David looked at Ryan and then back at me. "Pack your belongings. You'll be staying with us until you figure out what to do next." I spent the following 3 days relocating my belongings to Ryan's home. Dad helped me carry boxes to my car, seeming helpful and encouraging, as if he were doing me a favor. Monica made a big show of being sad to see me leave, but the day before I left, I spotted her measuring my room with a tape measure, most likely planning Ethan's suite enlargement. The worst part was having to leave Noah. My younger brother waited in the driveway, trying not to cry, and I felt like the greatest piece of shit in the world for leaving him. But what options did I have? I was 18 years old, had $300, and had no legal right to take him with me. "It's not forever," I told him. "I'll call you every day, and whatever happens, you tell me. Okay?" He nodded, wiping his eyes. "Will you still come to my baseball games?" "Every single one," I pledged. Ryan and I graduated together in May. Dad showed up, snapped pictures, and posed proudly for the cameras. However, when other parents discussed college plans, Dad was nowhere to be found. College was slated to begin in the fall. I'd gotten into a public university. Decent ratings, nothing extraordinary but adequate. The problem was that my college fund had mysteriously gone when Mom died. Dad claimed there was nothing left after medical bills, but somehow Ethan's future remained bright and well-funded. So instead of attending freshman orientation, I was filling out job applications. 4.5 years. That's how long it took me to make it through college while working full-time and watching my younger brother steadily disappear from his own family. 4.5 years of microwaved food, energy drinks, and 3 hours of sleep, if I was lucky. I got a job loading trucks at a warehouse starting at 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then I'd drive across town to work at a Shell station starting at 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. Ryan was attending State University, living in the dorms, and performing typical college kid activities. We'd hook out when our schedules were compatible, but I could see him drifting away. That was not the objective. We were basically living in different worlds. He was concerned about the midterms and fraternity gatherings. I was concerned about making rent and keeping the lights on. His parents, David and Rebecca, never treated me like a burden, but I realized I couldn't stay in their basement indefinitely. So, about 6 months into college, I found a dingy studio apartment for $400 per month, 300 square feet of character, and a bathroom shared with whatever was living in the walls. But it was mine. The warehouse job was harsh but honest. Show up. Carry a lot. Go home. Pure physical labor left me too exhausted to consider how messed up my family situation was. The gas station job was terrible. Night shift at a Shell in a sketchy neighborhood, dealing with alcoholics, crackheads and teenagers. I was robbed twice, once by a guy with a knife who appeared more terrified than I was, and once by a kid who couldn't have been more than 15. Throughout all, I kept my pledge to Noah. I called him every day, even when I was completely exhausted. The kid was growing very quickly. Actually, it was too fast, but more importantly, he was developing a strategy for survival in that mansion. "I don't argue with Monica anymore," he told me on one of our calls. "It's easier." My younger brother was learning to hide in his own home. It made me nauseous. But what could I do? Call Dad and complain? He had made his decision years ago. Meanwhile, Ethan lived like a freaking prince. Private music classes, travel baseball, and new wardrobes each season. Monica would share photos of her boys from various events and activities on Facebook. However, Noah was never seen in those photographs. I began capturing everything. Initially, I was maintaining records for my own sanity, rather than intentionally. Screenshots from Facebook posts featuring Ethan's new car, laptop and vacation images. Receipts for gifts I'd buy Noah when no one else would. Notes from our phone talks regarding what was going on in that residence. Looking back, I believe a part of me knew this information would be valuable someday. Community college began in January. I had saved enough for part-time tuition and books. I barely got by on dollar burgers and gas station coffee. I studied in my car during breaks and fell asleep in the library more than I can count. It was tiring and unpleasant, but it was entirely worthwhile because each credit hour demonstrated that Dad was wrong about me. College was more than simply school for me, it was an escape. My grades were not ideal, but they were constant. B's and A's, Dean's List for 3 semesters. Not bad for studying in a gas station restroom. During one of our phone talks, Noah mentioned Ethan's 16th birthday party. Dad bought him a car, Noah explained, attempting to seem nonchalant. A Camaro. Brand new. A crazy Camaro for a kid who had never worked in his life. Meanwhile, I drive a 2003 Honda with 200,000 miles and a check engine light that I've dubbed. My birthday's coming up, he remarked gently. I'm not expecting a car or anything, but maybe. He did not continue his sentence. He did not have to. We both knew there would be no car, party, or anything near to what Ethan had received. So I began saving for Noah's 18th birthday that night. Every extra money, tip from the gas station, and returned can and bottle went into a jar dubbed E's Freedom Fund, because I was afraid that when my younger brother turned 18, he'd get the same speech I did. My graduation was on a Thursday in December, rather than the customary spring ceremony. To complete my studies quickly, I had been taking lessons all year. David and Rebecca attended the ceremony and cheered louder than everyone else as I walked across the stage. Ryan was there too, pleased of his pal for pulling this off. Dad did not come. We hadn't communicated in 2 years, so I had no idea I was graduating. Noah had asked him about it, as I subsequently discovered. He mentioned that his sibling was finishing college soon. Dad responded, "Good for him." That was it. But, you know what? Screw him. I did not graduate with his approval. I graduated for myself, Noah, and Mom. I knew she'd be proud. During my last semester, I began to receive job offers. The abilities I earned while working 2 jobs and attending school were exactly what logistics businesses were seeking for. I accepted a position with Meridian Supply Solutions. Starting income is $45,000, with health benefits and 401k matching. It felt like winning the lottery. My first actual apartment was a 1-bedroom in a nice neighborhood. It had a fully equipped kitchen, a bathroom that did not require sharing, and windows that genuinely opened. After 18 months they were promoted to senior analyst, earning an additional $15,000. I was good at this job. Very good. By the time I was 25, I was earning $75,000 and had recently been promoted to regional manager. I had my own office, team, and was respected by CEOs twice my age. Throughout it all, I kept phoning Noah and saw him develop into a brilliant, resilient young guy who'd learned to survive in a place where he wasn't wanted. I moved into a larger space 3 months before his 18th birthday. 2 bedrooms, a solid school district, and everything a child needs to graduate high school and begin college. I'd been waiting for this call for months, ever since he turned 18 and discovered that Dad's concept of freedom was just as flawed the second time around. Hell, I had been preparing for it for 7 years. However, my phone rang at 11:47 p.m. When I saw Noah's name on the screen, my stomach fell. "He did it," Noah announced before I could say hi. His voice was calm, but I could hear the pain beneath. "Same speech you got." I was sitting in my living room when I had a flashback to being 18 and being ejected out my dad's kitchen. He laughed. Monica was standing right behind him the whole time, nodding along like a freaking bobblehead. That's not surprising. Monica had spent years organizing this moment, just as she had planned mine. Dad said, "I have until Sunday to make arrangements." Sunday. 3 days. At least I had a week. "Pack your stuff," I informed him. "I'm coming to get you." "You don't have to." "Like hell I don't. You're not staying in that house another minute longer than necessary." There was silence on the other end, and for a little moment, I believed the call had been dropped. Then I heard him wail. Perhaps for the first time since Mother died. "I thought maybe it would be different," he told me. "Maybe because I kept my head down, got good grades, never caused problems. Maybe he'd actually want me to stay." And there it was, the thing that shattered my heart after everything Dad and Monica had put him through. Noah still had hopes for their approval. "Listen to me," I instructed. "This isn't about you. This is about him choosing his new family over us." That night, I traveled there with Ryan in my pickup. Yeah, Ryan, still my best friend after all these years. When I called him and described the situation, he didn't hesitate. "Same as last time?" he inquired. "Same as last time." We got to the house at 12:30 a.m. All of the lights were turned off except for Noah's window. Dad's automobile was in the driveway. Monica's Escalade was parked behind it, like it always is. Noah was waiting for us, holding 3 rubbish bags and a cardboard box. He lived in that house for 7 years, and everything fit in my truck bed with plenty of room to spare. "You sure about this?" Ryan inquired as we filled the bags. "No going back once we leave." Noah stared at the home and then at us. "There's nothing to go back to." Smart youngster. He had figured out what I had been learning for 18 years. We drove back to my home in silence. I had already set up the extra bedroom with a bed, desk and dresser, everything a high school senior would need. I talked with the school district about moving his records. I ensured that he could complete his final year without any disruption. When we arrived at my flat, he just stood in the center of the living room, looking around. "Damn, this is really happening," he exclaimed. "Yeah, it's really happening. You hungry?" We ended up ordering pizza at 2 a.m., staying up until dawn to discuss. Not about Dad or Monica or the disaster we'd left behind, but about the future. All the possibilities that existed when you weren't constantly walking on eggshells. The next morning, I established the ground rules. The same ones David Miller gave me when I moved in with them. Stay out of trouble, help around the house, keep your grades up. You do that, and you can concentrate on being a child rather than working 3 jobs like I did. "I want to get a job," Noah explained. "I want to contribute." "You don't have to." "I want to," he stated. "I've never had my own money. I want to know what that feels like." So he took a job bussing tables at a nearby restaurant on weekends. For 8 years, we had no touch with Dad, Monica, or Ethan. The radio is silent. It was as if they had never existed. And really, we were better off. Noah graduated from high school with a 3.9 GPA and was accepted into State University on an academic scholarship. Not a full ride, but enough to cover the majority of tuition. I promised him I'd manage the rest, that he should concentrate on his studies and not worry about money. "You sure?" he inquired. "College is expensive." "So is therapy," I replied. "And I'd rather pay for your education than pay someone to listen to your rants." He chuckled at it, but I was serious. Every dime I spent on his college was a rejection of Dad's ideology. Throughout those 8 years, I continued to ascend the ladder. The regional manager advanced to the position of district manager and then vice president of operations. By 30, I was making 6 figures and had a corner office with a view. I met Clara in 2021. She was a marketing director I had met at work, smart, humorous and unimpressed by corporate crap. When I told her about my family issue, she made no attempt to resolve it or promote reconciliation. She just said, "Their loss," and meant it. Clara adored Noah, as if he were the little brother she never had. Helped him choose classes, trained him to drive manual shift, and provided him advice on his dating life like a normal big sister. For the first time since Mom's death, we felt like a real family. Then they figured out I was paying for Noah's college. The call arrived on a Monday afternoon. My assistant disrupted a client meeting. "I'm sorry, but you have a call from someone claiming to be your stepmother. She says it's urgent." I excused myself and accepted the call. "Hello." "Hi, this is Monica. I hope you're doing well." After some awkward small conversation and pretending to care, she disclosed. "By the way, I heard you're paying for Noah's tuition. That's very thoughtful. You know, your brother Ethan is starting college in the fall, and we were wondering if you'd be willing to help with tuition too." I had to put down my phone for a moment and marvel at it. "Let me get this straight. You want me, the son your husband kicked out 8 years ago, to pay for the college education of the kid he kept?" "Well, when you put it like that." "How else would I put it, Monica?" She began telling a sob story about finances, Ethan's potential, and how they were struggling to pay college. Meanwhile, I am thinking about Ethan's Camaro, their Disney excursions, and the kitchen makeover. "The answer is no," I replied. "I'm happy to pay for my brother's education. I'm not paying for Ethan's." "How could you be so cruel? He's your brother too. You're being unreasonable." I hung up before she had finished her sentence. I sat in my office looking out at the metropolitan skyline and began giggling. The sheer boldness of these folks never ceases to surprise me. Then came the elderly man. He called the same day and got straight to the point. "You are paying for Ethan's tuition if you like it or not. You don't get to act up on us the moment you get money. Do you understand? We're still your family. I won't let you." I hung up on him while he was barking, then blocked his number. But they weren't finished. Within 48 hours, my phone was inundated with calls and texts from relatives I hadn't spoken with since high school graduation. Suddenly, every aunt, uncle and cousin expressed strong feelings about my selfishness. My phone was continuously vibrating with texts from aunts, uncles and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, all of which included the same message. How could I have been so harsh to Ethan? How could I play favorites? Didn't I understand that family meant supporting one another? Family, correct? The finest one came from my cousin Olivia, Dad's niece, whom I hadn't spoken with since Mom's burial. I can't believe you're being so petty. Ethan didn't choose this situation any more than you did. He's just a kid trying to go to college. You're successful now, why can't you help him out? It's what your mom would have wanted. These folks are invoking Mom's memories to guilt me into financing Monica's children's education. I contacted my Uncle Frank, Dad's brother, always the most forthright guy in the family, because I needed to know what Dad had told everyone. Frank, what did Dad tell you about why I left home? A long pause. He said you wanted to be independent, got into some argument about house rules and decided to move out. Said you were going through a rebellious phase. House rules. Rebellious period. After 8 years of deception, the family believed every word. And Noah? The same story. Noah said he was following my terrible example. Rather than obeying his parents, he wanted to play home with his older brother. I hung up and sat for a minute. This son of a bitch had rewrote history, making himself the victim of ungrateful children, rather than the deadbeat father who had abandoned his children for a new family. That's when I decided it was time to reveal the truth. I scheduled a group video call with the extended family. I mailed invites to everyone who had been lecturing me about my selfishness. I told them I wanted to clear up some misconceptions. 15 folks showed up. When everyone was on television, I lay everything out. Since there seems to be confusion about what happened 8 years ago, let me clarify. I didn't choose to leave. Dad kicked me out. Same thing happened to Noah. We didn't run away. We got thrown away. You could hear a pin drop. For 8 years, none of you reached out. Not one call asking if we were okay. You believed Dad's lies without checking on us. But now that you want something from me, suddenly I'm family again. My Aunt Margaret attempted to interrupt. Dad chose his new family over his biological kids, and all of you enabled it. Now you're mad that I won't subsidize the golden child's education. Too bad. I canceled the call and blocked all of them. Clara found me in my office later. Do you feel better? She questioned. Getting there, I said. But I wasn't done yet. Something had been troubling me about the entire incident. How did they discover out that I was paying for Noah's college? Only 4 individuals knew: myself, Clara, Noah, and my financial advisor. I phoned Noah. Who else knows about the tuition payments? Nobody, I never told anyone. Why? How did Monica find out? It took some digging, but I eventually figured it out. One of Monica's acquaintances, a woman called Vanessa who worked in the college's financial aid office, looked up Noah's account, noticed that his tuition was being paid by a third party, did some cross-referencing, and discovered it was mine. This was not only a significant violation of privacy regulations, but it was also most likely the catalyst for the entire mess. Monica's friend gave her information she had no right to, and Monica used that knowledge to find me down and demand money. It's time to consult a lawyer. FERPA infractions are a severe issue. When institutions mishandle student information, they risk losing federal funds. The Department of Education takes privacy intrusions seriously. Within a week, we had evidence that Vanessa had accessed Noah's data without authority and exchanged sensitive material with Monica. We had witnesses, timestamps, and all of the necessary evidence to make a case. When the college received our letter, they panicked. These kind of breaches have the potential to shut down government financial aid programs, thereby killing them. They were determined to make this go away quietly. We settled on $75,000, which would cover Noah's remaining tuition and graduate school if he wanted it. Vanessa was dismissed. The college has established new privacy protocols, and I gained joy from seeing karma work in real time. But that was only the warm-up performance. Remember how I mentioned that I work in supply chain management? It's a smaller industry than you might expect, and people talk. Word spreads about who is trustworthy, who is not, who you want to deal with, and who you should avoid. Dad's plumbing business had been struggling for several years. It turns out that when you spend all of your time playing suburban dad, rather than running your business, things start to fall apart. He had been attempting to secure contracts with some of the larger construction companies, including a number with which I had contacts. I did not sabotage anything. I did not disparage him or propagate false information. I simply made sure that the appropriate individuals were aware of his character. Funny how rapidly word spreads in professional circles when someone's ethics are called into question. Dad was unable to secure any contracts within 6 months. Companies that were considering working with him suddenly discovered other options. Credit lines have dried up. Suppliers began demanding payment in front. The suburban ideal lifestyle he'd built with loans began to crumble. He had to sell Mom's house, which was where Noah and I grew up. I moved into a rental across town. Everything was downsized. Let half of his staff go. Ethan had to transfer from his costly private college to a community college since they could not pay the tuition. And Monica, darling Monica, who'd spent 8 years playing suburban parent with someone else's kid's inheritance, filed for divorce 6 months after it ran out. Apparently her affection was dependent on Dad's ability to support the lifestyle she had grown accustomed to. She took half of what little was left, moved back in with her parents, and immediately began seeing another guy with better financial prospects. Ethan went with her. Naturally. Kid has never recognized Dad as his biological father. So there he was, alone, broke and abandoned by the new family he had chosen over his biological children. The irony was so exquisite, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Do you know what they say about karma? She is patient, but she consistently collects. By early 2022, Dad's life had entirely collapsed. The business was no more. The home was gone. Monica was gone. And Ethan had accompanied his mother to the new sugar daddy she had discovered. Dad was working as an employee for the first time in 20 years, living in a rundown apartment, and most likely wondering what went wrong. I should have felt satisfied. The dad who kicked out his own children to play home with his new family got exactly what he deserved. However, there was still one more shoe to drop. See, I had been chronicling everything for 8 years. Every slur against Noah, every Facebook post about Ethan's accomplishments while neglecting those of his stepson, and every family gathering to which we were not invited. I had receipts dated back to the day I was kicked out. Why? Because a part of me knew this would happen. The call arrived on a Sunday evening. I was at home with Clara, making supper and discussing our plans for the weekend. When I saw Dad's number on my phone, I almost didn't answer. We hadn't spoken in 8 years, since the day I picked up Noah, but curiosity triumphed. Hello, son. His voice sounded old and exhausted. I was hoping we could talk. Son. Right now I was his son again. About what? About family. About making things right. I set the phone to speaker so Clara could hear. She raised an eyebrow but said nothing. I know I made mistakes, Dad said. I know things got complicated after your mother died. And maybe I didn't handle the situation perfectly, but we're family. That has to count for something. Complicated. That's what he called it. Now what do you want? I inquired. I want my sons back. Oh, that's a lot of nerve. A long pause. Look. I thought I was doing the right thing. Teaching you responsibility. Helping you become men. Maybe my methods were wrong. But my intentions were good. Sure, let's discuss his aims. And now, what's changed? Another pause. I'm getting older, I've lost everything, I don't want to lose my sons too. There it was. He had lost everything else. So he wanted us back. Dad, let me ask you something. In the 8 years since you kicked us out, how many times did you call to check on us? It was quiet. How many times did you come to Noah's school events? There was further stillness. How many birthdays did you remember? How many holidays did you invite us to? I thought you didn't want anything to do with me. We were kids, Dad. It was your job to maintain the relationship, not ours. I could hear him gasping on the other end, most likely trying to figure out how to spin this. I know I wasn't perfect, he finally confessed. But I'm willing to make amends. We could start fresh, put the past behind us. As if 8 years of abandonment were nothing but a distant memory. What about Ethan? I questioned. Is he part of this family reunion? Ethan's with his mother now. This is about us. About my real family. Now Noah and I were his true family. It's funny how things change when you're abandoned. I'll think about it, I said. Of course. Take all the time you need. I hung up and stared at Clara. She shook her head. You're not seriously considering this, she told me. Nah, but I want to see how far he's willing to go. Over the next few weeks, Dad kept calling, leaving voicemails about family, regrets, and a desire to make things right. He even sent Noah a card. My brother's first birthday card from him in 8 years. Noah brought it over to my house, still in its envelope. He opened it and found a generic birthday card from the drugstore with a handwritten note. I'm sorry for everything. I miss you. Love, Dad. Noah asked me, "What are you going to do?" That's when I told him about the records I'd been keeping. I'm going to give him what he wants, I told him. A family reunion. But it's going to be on our terms. I called Dad back the following week. I've been thinking about what you said, I informed him. I'm so glad to hear that, son. There are conditions. Of course. Whatever you need. First, Noah and I want a full accounting of what happened to Mom's life insurance money and our college funds. Pause. Well, that's complicated. There were medical bills. We have copies of Mom's insurance policies. We know how much you got. We want to know where it went. Longer pause. That money was used for family expenses. Ethan's car was a family expense? I don't see how relitigating the past is going to help us move forward. Second condition, we want you to tell the extended family the truth about what happened, all of it. No more lies about us choosing to leave. Son, I don't think that's necessary. Those are the terms. Full financial accounting and public acknowledgement of what you did. Take it or leave it. He took some time to consider it. They called me back 3 days later. Okay, he said. I agree to your terms. Good, let's meet next Sunday. On Sunday afternoon, Clara and I traveled to Dad's apartment. It was in an outdated complex. Dad answered the door, appearing older than his years, the overall impression of a man battered by life. The flat was small, claustrophobic, and filled with garage sale furnishings. We sat at his kitchen table, and I took out a folder. The financial accounting you promised, I told you. He opened it, and his face turned white. Insurance paperwork, bank statements, records detailing exactly how Mom's insurance money was spent. Monica's automobile, Ethan's equipment, Disney vacations. How did you get these? Public records. The question is, why did Mom's insurance money pay for Ethan's Camaro instead of Noah's college fund? I was trying to blend the families. I thought if I treated Ethan like my own son. You already had 2 sons, Clara stated. The second part of the deal was telling the truth to the extended family, I explained to him. Good, because I've already sent them this. I showed him an email on my phone. Complete timeline, paperwork, and screenshots. Everything I'd been saving for 8 years. He read through it, his face turning pale. Number, this will ruin me. No, Dad, you ruined yourself. Now you live with the consequences. Same as Noah and I had to do when you kicked us out. I rose up and moved toward the door. Wait, Dad said. What about us being a family again? I thought we had an agreement. We stopped being family the day you chose them over us. If you thought we could play house again after all these years, you were wrong. But I'm apologizing now. Come on, son, don't be so cruel. You're negotiating, there's a difference. Clara and I left him staring at his card table, surrounded by reminders of his failures. The extended family's response to my email was immediate and predictable. The ones who had been lecturing me on family values suddenly became very silent. A few people attempted to call with feeble apologies, but the most simply pretended the email never happened. My granddad called 3 days later. I owe you an apology, he explained. I should have checked on you boys. Yes, you should have. Is there anything I can do now? Nothing that matters. Too little, too late. He did not argue. Good. Noah went through all of the paperwork, looked at the family's feeble responses, and simply shrugged. I'm not surprised, he replied. I stopped expecting anything from them years ago. Dad called a few more times in the next months, but I never answered. What was left to say? I had given him the family reunion he desired, but not in the way he had envisaged. I last heard from Ryan, whose mother had run into Dad at the supermarket store. He was working 2 jobs, trying to get out of debt, and living alone in that dismal apartment. What shall I say? Karma is a bitch. My father lectured me about financial responsibility for 20 minutes, yet refused to lend $5,000 while planning his Cancun vacation. I am 34 years old, and last Tuesday, my entire life changed when I checked my lottery ticket and found out I had won $47 million. My palms shook as I glanced at the 6 numbers that matched exactly. After the first shock subsided, I had a strange notion. I wouldn't tell anyone about this money. You know, I have a problematic background with my family about finances. If you're seeing this right now, please leave a comment telling me where you're viewing from. Before I tell you about this life-changing decision, Please like and subscribe to hear more true stories about family devotion and betrayal that may transform the way you view your own relationships. Prior to that fateful Tuesday, my life was terribly mundane. I worked as an accountant for a small marketing agency in Portland, earning just enough to live comfortably but never enough to feel secure. My residence was a little one-bedroom on the outskirts of the city. Nothing special, but it was mine. Every morning, I'd get up at 6 o'clock, make my coffee, and begin my day with the constant anxiety of finances and deadlines hovering over my head. The job was challenging, with 60-hour work weeks becoming the norm rather than the exception, particularly around tax season. My familial situation was complex, to say the least. My parents, Thomas and Margaret Wilson, separated when I was 14 and remarried within 2 years. My father, Thomas, a high school physics teacher, married Elaine, a real estate agent with affluent tastes and an even more expensive lifestyle. My mother, Margaret, fell in love with Victor, a prosperous business entrepreneur who had more money than my father but kept a close eye on every penny. I have 2 siblings. Rachel, my younger sister, is 30, and has always been the golden kid. She graduated from an Ivy League university, married a surgeon called Daniel, and now lives in a beautiful suburban home with their 2 gorgeous children. Then there's my older brother, Andrew, 36, who, despite his charm and intelligence, has never really worked out his life. He moves from job to job, relationship to relationship, and has perfected the art of borrowing money from family members. The pattern was always the same. Urgent call, passionate plea, promise of repayment, then radio quiet until the next crisis. Extended family was no less complex. My Aunt Clara, my mother's younger sister, was possibly the most real person in our family. Despite living paycheck to paycheck as an elementary school teacher, she always managed to show up when it counted. She drove an old Honda that made strange noises, lived in a small apartment full of books and plants, and never complained about her situation. In stark contrast was my Aunt Judith, my father's older sister, who had married wealthy and made no secret of it. She spent the holidays criticizing everyone's life choices and making disparaging remarks about my job, apartment, and eternal single state. My cousin Ethan, her son, inherited her entitlement but not her financial success, and he had a gambling problem that the family pretended to ignore. My family's history of financial aid has jaded me. When Andrew required $5,000 for rehab 3 years ago, I drained my small savings account to assist him, only to discover months later that he had never truly attended therapy. When Rachel needed aid with her wedding expenses, I put $2,000 on my credit card, which she pledged to repay after the honeymoon. After 5 years, I was still waiting. When my father needed a loan to fix his roof after a storm, I sent what I could, only to find images of him and Elaine vacationing in Cancun the next month. My dearest friend Natalie was the only one who was fully aware of these betrayals. We had met in college, and unlike most of my relationships, ours had remained stable. Natalie was a nurse, so she understood the hardship and never criticized my conflicting sentiments regarding my family. She was the voice of reason when I was feeling bitter, telling me that not everyone was trying to take advantage of me. At work, things weren't any better. My supervisor, Collins, had a habit of claiming credit for my ideas at client meetings. My coworker, Jeremy, routinely left early, leaving me to pick up the burden, yet I always received the accolades I deserved. Despite being unrecognized, I put my head down and worked hard, expecting that it would eventually pay off. Purchasing lottery tickets was my one small luxury, a weekly practice that my family enjoyed teasing me about. Every Friday, I'd go to the corner store and spend $10 on tickets. My mother described it as a tax on individuals who couldn't do math. My brother quipped that rather than squandering the money, I could just give it to him directly. My father schooled me on probability and statistics. But there was something promising about the tickets. Even after years of winning only $20 here and there, I couldn't bring myself to give up on this small chance at freedom. I had dreams, of course. I wanted to travel beyond the Pacific Northwest. I wanted to go back to school and possibly acquire a master's degree in something I was truly enthusiastic about. I intended to have enough savings to cover any unexpected car repairs. But as I entered my mid-30s, these ambitions became increasingly distant, as I continued to pay off college loans and carried a little but persistent credit card debt that never seemed to go away, despite my meticulous planning. Each month was a delicate balancing act between bills, groceries, and the occasional supper out with Natalie. I clipped coupons, analyzed pricing, and knew which store offered the best deals on everything from toilet paper to coffee. I drove a 10-year-old Corolla that produced an alarming noise when it rained, but I couldn't afford to repair it. I'd acquired the art of appearing perfectly fine while mentally calculating expenditures, wondering if I could afford to say yes to an offer, or if I needed to make up an excuse to stay at home. This was my life before anything changed. Ordinary, sometimes unpleasant, lonely, yet stable in its own right. I had no idea how a single piece of paper would utterly upend everything I thought I knew about myself, and the people I considered family. It was my 30th birthday when I bought the winning ticket. I had just concluded a very difficult week at work, during which Collins had once again claimed credit for my financial approach, which had saved a large client thousands of dollars. I went to Harold's Corner Market on Fridays as I always did, but this time I changed things up a little. "Happy birthday, Elena," Harold said as I arrived. Harold was a gentle elderly man who had owned the store for more than 30 years. He knew all of his regular clients' names and always had a nice word to say. "Thanks, Harold. The usual please, with maybe one extra for good luck," I said, offering him $20 instead of my usual $10. "Birthday splurge. Maybe today is your lucky day," he remarked with a smirk as he handed me the tickets. Instead of my normal rapid selection, I opted on a whim to pick my own numbers. I chose my birth month and day as March 16th. It is my mother's 12th birthday. My father's birthday is 21st. Clara turns 9, while Natalie turns 30. 6 numerals symbolized the most important persons in my life, including those who had disappointed me. That evening, I ordered takeaway from my favorite Thai restaurant, opened the bottle of wine Natalie had given me for my birthday, and settled down for a nice night alone. The lottery drawing was at 8 p.m., but I barely noticed as I cruised around social media, seeing posts from pals who were celebrating far more spectacular birthdays than mine. At 8:30, I remembered the tickets and casually picked up my phone to check the numbers, expecting nothing as usual. The first number matched was 3. I grinned slightly. The second one matched, 16. My heart rate increased somewhat. Third number, 12. Fourth, 21. By this point my palms were sweating. The fifth number is 9. I held my breath. The sixth and final number is 30. I stared at my phone for what seemed like an age. This could not be correct. I must have read something incorrectly. I checked again and again. I turned on the television and returned to the live drawing. I watched as my numbers showed on the screen one by one. My hands shook so much that I dropped the remote. "No way," I said quietly to the empty flat. "No way." According to the lottery website, I was the only winner of $47 million. After taxes, it would be roughly $28 million, an incomprehensible number for someone who had been overjoyed earlier that day with a 10% off coupon for laundry detergent. I didn't sleep at all that night. Instead, I spent hours looking up lottery winners online. What I discovered was disturbing. Stories about winners whose lives fell apart after receiving a windfall. Families torn apart by greed. Friends and distant relatives emerge out of nowhere, with sob tales and outstretched hands. Winners who went bankrupt within 5 years and were worse off than when they won. According to one article, playing the lottery is the easiest way to lose everything you care about. As the sun dawned, I made a decision. I would claim the money, but I would not tell anyone. Not my parents, my siblings, or Natalie. At least not right now. Before everyone else tried to tell me what to do with this money, I wanted time to analyze it, form a strategy, and figure out what it meant for my future. That morning, I called in sick for the first time in 3 years and scheduled an appointment with Martin Blake, an attorney who specializes in financial planning and estate law. His office was in a downtown high-rise, and as I sat in the waiting room in my regular clothes, clutching my handbag containing the winning ticket, I felt like an imposter. Martin welcomed me, "Miss Wilson," and extended his hand. He was in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes behind costly glasses. "What can I help you with today?" I took a big breath and put the ticket on his desk. "I need to know how to claim this without anyone finding out it was me." His eyes widened slightly as he examined the ticket. Then he nodded professionally. "I see. Well, you have come to the right place." Martin spent the next 2 hours explaining my alternatives. In our state lottery, winners may claim rewards through trusts or legal companies that kept their identities hidden. He described the procedure of establishing a blind trust, how taxes would operate, and the need of creating a team of financial consultants to assist with such a significant money. "The biggest mistake winners make," he advised me, "is telling too many people too quickly. Once that happens, there is no going back." I nodded, happy that my instincts had been right. "I want to do this right. I do not want this money to ruin my life." As I exited Martin's office with a folder full of paperwork and a list of next tasks, I felt an odd combination of excitement and trepidation. I had more money than I could ever dream of. However, I was unable to share this life-changing news with anyone. I'd be living a double life, pretending to be the same struggling accountant, but secretly being a multimillionaire. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked with Martin to create the trust, collect the prizes, and open investment accounts. We developed a detailed financial strategy to ensure that I never had to worry about money again. Even if I lived to be 100, the money was real and in accounts under my control. However, my daily existence remained unchanged. I still went to work, whined about bills to coworkers, and drove my old Corolla. The secrecy was beginning to grate on me. I found myself thinking about my relatives. Would they be glad for me if they knew? Will they honor my boundaries? Or will they perceive me as little more than a walking ATM? The questions tormented me, and an idea began to emerge. What if I could figure out how my family would respond to my unexpected income without exposing it? What if I could assess their character before picking who to reveal my secret to? The plan came together one night as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I'd design a scenario in which I required financial assistance. Not a large sum, but enough to be important. I'd approach each family member with the same narrative and request, and see who would help me without expecting anything in exchange. Only then would I understand who deserved to be a part of my new life. The next day, I met with Martin again to check that my funds were solid before moving forward with my plan. We had built a varied investment portfolio, established trusts for future charitable giving, and opened a small personal account that would allow me to withdraw monies without arousing suspicion. The majority of the money was carefully invested, untouchable by anyone save myself. "Everything is in order, Eleanor," Martin said, pushing a packet across his pristine desk. "Your financial future is secure. You could stop working tomorrow if you wanted to." The idea was appealing, but I realized that a drastic lifestyle shift would bring questions I wasn't prepared to address. "I think I'll stay at my job for now," I said. "At least until I figure some things out." That evening, I invited Natalie over to dinner. As we sat on my small balcony, drinking wine, I decided to tell her about part of my plan. I couldn't keep everything within, and I trusted her more than anyone. "I am thinking about conducting a sort of experiment with my family," I began cautiously. Natalie lifted her eyebrow. "What kind of experiment?" I took a deep breath. "I am going to tell them I lost my job and need financial help, just to see who actually cares enough to help me when I need it." Natalie's countenance changed from wonder to concern. "Elena, that seems manipulative. Why would you do that?" "Because I am tired of being the only one who helps when others need it," I replied, not quite meeting her gaze. "I want to know who would be there for me if the tables were turned." "But lying to test people? That does not sound like you." Natalie laid down her wine glass. "Why not just ask them how they feel about you? Have an honest conversation." I laughed without humor. "Right. Because my family is so great at honest conversations. You know how they are, Natalie. You have seen how they treat me. Still, this feels wrong. What are you trying to prove?" "I am not trying to prove anything," I insisted, though this was not totally accurate. "I just want to know who actually cares about me versus who sees me as a resource." Natalie shakes her head. "I think you are going to hurt yourself more than anyone else with this. But I know that look in your eye. You have already made up your mind." She was correct. I had spent the day constructing my story, making sure it was plausible but not too dramatic that it would arouse suspicion. I would inform everyone that the marketing agency I worked for had abruptly closed after losing its largest clients. I would estimate that I needed $5,000 to pay rent and medical bills until I found a new job. It was a considerable sum but not outlandish, and clearly within the resources of the majority of my family members. I established a list of people I'd approach, including my mother Margaret and stepfather Victor, my father Thomas and stepmother Elaine, my sister Rachel and her husband Daniel, my brother Andrew, my aunt Clara, my aunt Judith and my cousin Ethan. 10 people had come to me for aid at some point, all of whom I had helped financially or emotionally when they needed it. The following day I practiced my scenario with Natalie, who reluctantly agreed to help despite her reservations. "You need to sound genuinely distressed, but not desperate," she told me. "And have specific details ready about the company closing. They might ask questions." I nodded while taking notes. "I will say the CEO had been embezzling funds, and the company is under investigation. That would explain why it happened so suddenly, and why I might not get my final paycheck." "And what about your job search? They will ask about that. I have been applying everywhere, but the job market is tight, especially for specialized accounting positions. I have some interviews lined up, but nothing definite yet. And my emergency fund is depleted from some recent medical tests. I had carefully considered every detail, devising a situation that would elicit pity without raising too many concerns. As I completed my strategy, I felt a tinge of shame. Was Natalie correct? Was this manipulative and wrong? But then I realized how many times I had depleted my savings to assist these same folks, often at considerable personal expense, and my resolve grew. It wasn't simply about testing them. It was to safeguard myself and my future. I developed a prediction list for how I anticipated each person would react. My mother would most likely offer some assistance, but not enough to meet my needs. My father would lecture me on financial responsibility while occasionally sending a small bit. Rachel would say she couldn't help because of the children's expenditures. Andrew would undoubtedly declare he didn't have any money. Victor and Elaine would refuse outright. Aunt Judith would criticize me for my terrible life decisions. Cousin Ethan would make empty promises of assistance. Aunt Clara was the only person I had any real hope for. Despite having the least to offer, she was always the most generous with what she had. However, even with her, I tried to keep my expectations low. $5,000 was a large sum for a public school teacher living alone. The plan was set. Over the next week, I would contact each family member individually, tell them the same narrative, and see who stepped up. Only then would I decide who should know about my lotto victory. Only then would I know who genuinely cared about me beyond what I could accomplish for them. I pulled up my phone and made the first call, filled with both anticipation and dread. It was time to discover who my real family was. I chose to call my mother first. Margaret had always prided herself on being a nurturing mom, regularly telling us that she had given up her own aspirations to raise her children. If anyone could help, I assumed it would be her. My palms trembled as I dialed her number. She responded on the third ring, sounding distracted. "Hi, Mom," I said deliberately, making my voice seem strained. "Elena, is everything okay? You sound upset." I began into my rehearsed story, telling her about the company's abrupt closure, the lost wages, and my terrible financial circumstances. As I spoke, I noticed her breathing shift, becoming more focused on each detail. "Oh, honey, that's terrible," she remarked as I concluded. "Have you applied for unemployment? What about your emergency fund?" I mentioned that unemployment would take weeks to process and that recent medical tests had emptied my emergency cash due to some alarming symptoms. I didn't explain the symptoms, leaving her imagination to fill in the gaps. "I hate to ask this, Mom, but I need help. About $5,000 to cover rent and medical bills until I can find something new. I promise I will pay you back as soon as I can." There was a lengthy delay on the other end of the line. "Oh, Elena, you know Victor and I just put a down payment on the lake house. We are pretty cash poor right now." Her voice became slightly defensive. "Have you asked your father or Rachel? Daniel makes good money at the hospital." I was hoping to avoid asking Dad, I admitted genuinely. "And Rachel has the kids and their private school tuition." "Well, let me talk to Victor and see what we can do," she finally said. "But I cannot promise anything. You know how tight he is with money, especially when it comes to, well, you know." I knew. Victor had never considered me his responsibility, insisting from the start that his money was for my mother and any children they might have had together. They never did. "Sure, Mom, just let me know as soon as you can. The rent is due next week." "I will, honey. And I am so sorry about your job. These things always work out for the best, though. Maybe this is a sign you should look at changing careers to something more stable." After hanging up, I jotted down her response in a journal I'd established for this purpose. She expressed concern, but instantly sought to delegate responsibilities. She hadn't flatly refused, but I felt her talk with Victor would conveniently render them unable to assist. The following day, I met my father, Thomas, for coffee. I chose a public spot because I thought he would be less inclined to react badly in such an environment. "You look tired," he said as I sat across from him. I gave him a faint grin and began my narrative. As I spoke, his face remained expressionless, with just occasional noddings or frowns at certain facts. When I finished asking for assistance with the $5,000, he leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "Eleanor, I've always taught you about financial responsibility," he said, sliding into his teacher voice. "This is exactly why I told you to keep 6 months of expenses saved at all times. What happened to that plan?" "Life happened, Dad," I said, trying not to sound frustrated. "Medical bills, car repairs. Not everyone can afford to set aside that much money. He breathed deeply. And now you expect others to bail you out. What about your spending habits? Do you really need that apartment in that neighborhood? What about your cable subscription and those streaming services? For the next 20 minutes he lectured me about financial planning, the labor market, and the value of living below one's means. He never once offered any meaningful assistance. I would love to help you, Elena, but Elaine and I are focusing on our retirement right now. We cannot afford to dip into those funds. It would be financially irresponsible. He patted my hand in a patronizing manner. This will be a good learning experience for you. Sometimes we need to hit rock bottom before we make necessary changes. I nodded, holding back tears that were only partially for show. Even though I expected this response, it hurt to hear him disregard my needs so simply. My sister Rachel was next. I drove to her lovely suburban home on a Saturday afternoon. Her husband Daniel was golfing, so we had solitude to converse. "Elena, what a surprise," she shouted as she opened the door. "The kids are at their swimming lessons. Come in." Her home was pristine, with high-end furniture and framed professional family photos on every wall. I told her about my circumstances while we sat in her gourmet kitchen, sipping lattes from her commercial-grade espresso machine. "Oh my God, that's awful," she exclaimed, reaching across the granite island to squeeze my hand. "I cannot believe they would just close like that. Poor you." Her concern appeared sincere, and for a moment, I felt hopeful. Then I explained that I needed to borrow $5,000. "Oh," she replied, her expression changing slightly. "Well, this is actually not a great time. We just bought the new Audi last month and the kids' tuition was due. Plus, we are redoing the master bathroom." She gave a shiver. "Daniel handles most of our finances, and he is really strict about our budget." "I understand," I replied gently. "I would not ask if I was not desperate." "I know," she replied swiftly. "Let me talk to Daniel and see what we can do. Maybe we can help with a smaller amount. Or maybe you could move in with us temporarily. The guest room is being used for storage right now, but we could clear it out." I thanked her for the offer, but noted that relocation would be tough because my employment hunt was focused in the city. She promised to call me after speaking with Daniel, but the way she avoided eye contact said everything I needed to know. My brother Andrew was perhaps the most disappointing. After I sent him a comprehensive text detailing my circumstances, he replied with a simple message. "That sucks, sis. I'm feeling really tense right now. We will call you later." He never did. My follow-up messages went unanswered, and when I attempted to call him directly, the calls went straight to voicemail. This from the same brother who had borrowed thousands from me over the years, always with weeping promises of payback that never came through. When I phoned my stepmother Elaine, she was forthright and did not even pretend to be sympathetic. "Eleanor, I am sure this is difficult, but Victor and I are not in a position to help. Perhaps this is an opportunity for you to learn better financial management skills. Have you considered downsizing your apartment or getting a roommate?" When I said that I had assisted them with renovations to their holiday cabin last year, she bristled. "That was different. That was a family property that you also enjoy using." The fact that I had only been invited to the cabin once in 5 years didn't seem to matter. My stepfather, Victor, was even worse. "You are not my daughter," he declared bluntly when I called. "I have supported your mother for years, but your financial problems are your own. Perhaps you should have chosen a more lucrative career path." My cousin Ethan looked empathetic at first, promising to help out. He even proposed we meet for lunch so he could give me the check. But when the day arrived, he texted an hour beforehand, stating something had come up and he would reschedule. He never did, and soon stopped replying to my mails completely. Aunt Judith's reaction was arguably the least unexpected, but nonetheless heartbreaking. "Well, Eleanor, I always said that company of yours seemed unstable. I told your father you should have taken that job at the bank after college, but no one listens to me." She then continued to tell me about all of the financial difficulties that other family members had faced, and how they had overcome them without requesting for assistance. That evening, I learned from Rachel that Aunt Judith was informing everyone about my financial carelessness. After a week of rejections, half-promises and complete quiet, I was emotionally tired. The experiment confirmed my deepest concerns about my family. However, the reality was still tough to face. 7 persons who had frequently requested and received my assistance over the years were unable or unwilling to reciprocate when I needed them. Then my phone rang. It was Aunt Clara. "Elena, honey, I just heard from your mother about the job. Are you okay?" Her voice was warm and genuine. I hadn't contacted Clara yet but planned to phone her the next day. The fact that she called me first, after learning about my circumstances secondhand, spoke volumes. I am hanging in there, I said. The emotion in my voice is now very authentic. Listen, I want to help. Can we meet for lunch tomorrow? My treat, of course. The following day, we met at a little diner near her apartment. Clara looked precisely like she always did, with her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a modest ponytail, trousers, and a sweater with mismatched buttons. She hugged me warmly before we sat down. I am so sorry about your job, sweetheart. That company never deserved you anyway. As we ate, she asked serious questions about my job hunt and offered to contact some former colleagues who had contacts in business. After our dishes had been cleaned, she dug into her purse and took out an envelope. I want you to take this, she asked, sliding it over the table. It is $3,000. I know it is not the full amount you need, but it should help with the rent at least. I stared at the envelope, shocked. Clara, I cannot take this. This is too much. Nonsense. Family helps family. And I want you to know something else. She leaned across the table and grabbed my hand. If you need a place to stay to save on rent, my sofa pulls out into a bed. It is not fancy, but you are welcome to stay as long as you need to. Tears filled my eyes, and this time they were sincere. Thank you, I said softly, amazed by her kindness. Now do not you worry about paying this back right away, she told you. Get back on your feet first. Find a job you actually like this time. Life is too short to work somewhere that does not appreciate you. As we exited the restaurant, Clara hugged me again. You are going to be okay, Elena. You are smart and capable. This is just a bump in the road. Driving home, I held the envelope containing $3,000, more than I thought Clara could afford. The contrast between her response and the rest of my family's could not have been sharper. The only person who had offered genuine assistance was the one with the least to offer. After meeting with Clara, I conducted some research that astounded me. $3,000 was practically all of her funds, and I discovered that she had been quietly battling with problems from type 2 diabetes. Her medicine prices had lately doubled, so she had taken on extra tutoring job to make ends meet. The realization struck me like a physical blow. Clara, who had so little, had given me practically everything she owned without hesitation or condition. Meanwhile, my mother, who had recently spent $8,000 on a bathroom remodel, couldn't afford $5,000 to assist her daughter with rent and medical bills. The following day, I asked Clara to my apartment for dinner. As she slipped onto my ancient couch, I noticed for the first time how fatigued she appeared. The small creases around her eyes deeper than I had remembered. Clara, I need to tell you something, I said, placing a cup of tea in front of her. I have not been completely honest with you. Her expression remained open, more intrigued than concerned. What is it, honey? I did not lose my job. The company is fine. I still have my position. The words came out rapidly. I made up the story to see who in the family would help me if I needed it. Clara was quiet for a moment before nodding softly. I see. Are you angry with me? I inquired, suddenly fearful of losing the one true friendship I had discovered via this experiment. She examined the question. No, not angry. Maybe sad. Sad that you felt the need to test people in this way. She sipped her tea. But I understand why you did it. Our family has not always been kind to you. You were the only one who offered to help, I informed her. Everyone else had excuses or just ignored me entirely. Clara sighed. People show you who they are when giving becomes inconvenient. I learned that lesson the hard way myself. What do you mean? She put her cup down and folded her hands in her lap. My ex-husband, Franklin. Did I ever tell you why we really divorced? I shake my head. The family's story had always been hazy. Something about growing apart. I came into a small inheritance when my grandmother died, about $50,000. Not a fortune, but significant for us at the time. Franklin immediately had all these plans for the money, mainly investing in his friend's business ventures. She giggled. I wanted to save it for our future, maybe buy a small house eventually. We fought about it for months. What happened? One day I discovered he had forged my signature and withdrawn most of the money. By the time I found out it was gone, invested in a restaurant that failed within a year. The memory made her shudder. When I confronted him, do you know what he said? That it was our money, not just mine, and he had as much right to it as I did. As if my name on the inheritance meant nothing. I was shocked. I had no idea. The family preferred the growing apart story, less messy. She grabbed for my hand. The point is, I learned that some people see you as a resource rather than a person, and it is a painful lesson. I am so sorry that happened to you, I replied, grasping her hand. It was a long time ago, but it taught me something important about money and relationships. She stared at me closely. Money does not just reveal who others truly are, Elena. It reveals who we are too. How we use it, how we share it, how we talk about it. It is a powerful mirror. Her statements had a deep resonance. At that time, I made a decision. Clara, there is something else I need to tell you, something big. I took a long breath. I won the lottery 3 weeks ago, $47 million. Her eyes widened, but she remained mute, waiting for me to proceed. I have not told anyone else. Not my parents, not Rachel or Andrew, not even Natalie. You are the first to know. Oh, Elena, she sighed. That is life-changing. I know, and that is why I did this test. I needed to know who would be there for me without knowing about the money. Clara nodded slowly. I understand that. But what will you do now? That is what I am trying to figure out. The money is secure, and I have good financial advisors, but I do not know how to handle the family. Clara considered this. You know, you do not owe anyone anything, Elena, not even me. But I want to help you, I said. Your medical expenses, a better apartment, whatever you need. She smiled softly. I do not need anything from you, sweetheart. I am happy with my life. My apartment is small, but it is full of things I love. My car runs most of the time. I have my students and my books. And now this wonderful secret with my favorite niece. She smacked my hand. Just knowing you are secure and happy would be enough for me. Her selflessness reduced me to tears. Here was someone who had given me practically everything she had when she thought I needed it, and now she was asking for little in return, even knowing I had millions. As we talked into the night, the disparity between Clara and the rest of my family grew more pronounced. While I was performing my experiment, word spread throughout the family about my alleged financial difficulties. Instead of causing worry, it had resulted in gossip and judgment. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. I heard you asked Rachel for money as well. You should have let me know you were asking everyone. It feels like you are pitting us against each other. Another came from my father. Elaine informed me that you have been contacting everyone for handouts. This is the precise type of irresponsible action I warned you about. The family had interpreted my appeal for assistance as proof of my character defects, rather as an opportunity to demonstrate compassion. They had told me everything I needed to know about the genuine nature of our connections. The morning after my chat with Clara, I met with Martin to discuss my long-term financial goals. Now that I understood my family relationships, I could make informed judgments regarding my future. I want to set up a trust for my Aunt Clara, I told him. Something that will cover her medical expenses and provide her with a comfortable retirement, but in a way that feels like a gift rather than charity. She is very proud. Martin nodded, taking notes. We can structure it as a family trust that provides a monthly stipend. She would not have to manage a large sum all at once, which can be overwhelming for someone not used to wealth. Perfect, and I want to buy her a small house near wherever I decide to live. Nothing extravagant, just comfortable and accessible for someone with health issues. We spent the next hour talking about investment techniques, philanthropic foundations, and my current living circumstances. I had chosen to give notice at my accounting work and focus on starting a nonprofit organization to assist elderly individuals living alone, inspired by Clara's circumstances and the many others like her. What about the rest of your family? Martin inquired carefully. Do you plan to tell them about the winnings? I shake my head. Not right now. Maybe not ever. But I do want to arrange a family meeting to clear the air about my financial troubles. Later that day, I called Natalie and told her the whole truth about the lottery jackpot and the family experiment. After her first astonishment, she realized why I had kept it a secret. So what now? She inquired. Are you going to become one of those eccentric millionaires who still clips coupons and drives a beat-up car? I laughed. No, but I am not going to suddenly start buying Bentleys either. I want this money to mean something, to do good, starting with Clara. She deserves it. Natalie agreed. And what about everyone else, the ones who failed your test? I am still figuring that out. I have called a family meeting for this weekend. I told them I have an important announcement. When Sunday dawned, I was shocked to see everyone gathered at my flat. My mother and Victor, my father and Elaine, Rachel and Daniel, even Andrew, who had been avoiding my phone calls for weeks. Aunt Judith had already frowned disapprovingly when she arrived. Aunt Clara arrived last, giving me a covert smile as she entered. As everyone gathered in my modest living room, looking around with varied degrees of interest and judgment, I stood before them, surprisingly calm. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "I know there have been rumors going around about my financial situation, and I wanted to address them directly." My mom shifted uncomfortably. Andrew became quite interested in his phone. Rachel and Daniel exchanged looks. "The truth is, I am fine. I have found a new job with better pay and benefits." This was legally correct, as I had recently appointed myself executive director of my new foundation for a modest salary. I will be transitioning to that position next month. "Well, that is wonderful news," my mother exclaimed, clearly relieved. "We have all been so worried." Several faces in the room appeared to be relaxed. They had come expecting to be solicited for money again, or to stage an intervention regarding my financial habits. Instead, they were given fantastic news that didn't require anything from them. "So why all the drama about needing money?" my father inquired, his tone accusing. "Why ask everyone for help if you had a job lined up?" I met his stare steadily. "The job came through recently, and when I was in trouble, I reached out to my family. That is what family is supposed to be for, right?" An uneasy silence settled over the room. "Well, we all have our own financial commitments," Elaine remarked defensively. "It is not always possible to help even when we want to." "Of course," I responded. "We all have to make decisions about our priorities." I turned to Andrew. "Speaking of which, Andrew, I noticed you never responded to my messages when I needed help. Yet you had no problem asking me for $3,000 last Christmas for your rent." He had the elegance to appear embarrassed. "I was going through some stuff, and I did not have any money to give you." "You did not even call me back," I stated. "That would have been free." The conversation continued in this manner, with me speaking gently but firmly about the hypocrisy and lack of support I had encountered. Nobody admitted any wrongdoing. There were explanations, justifications, and even attempts to shift blame back onto me for making everyone feel terrible. As they trickled out after an uncomfortable hour, I felt an odd sensation of relief. I hadn't told them about my lottery win, but I had stood up for myself in a way I'd never done before. The money had given me something probably more essential than wealth: the courage to see my relationships clearly and set appropriate boundaries. Clara stayed behind after everyone gone to assist me wipe away the coffee cups and plates. "You did well," she stated calmly. "That could not have been easy." "It was actually easier than I expected," I explained. For the first time, I was not afraid of disappointing them, because I realized their opinion of me was never based on who I really am. Clara grinned. "That is a powerful realization. So what happens next?" "Next," I replied, "we start looking at houses for both of us." 1 year later, my life had changed dramatically from the day I first discovered the matching lotto numbers. I'd moved into a lovely but modest home in a quiet neighborhood with a garden that made me happy every morning. Clara's new home was only 3 blocks away, a one-story craftsman with wide entrances to accommodate her walker on days when her diabetes made walking difficult. My charity organization, Second Family, had outgrown my expectations. We offered companionship, home repairs, and financial aid to elderly persons living alone, with a particular emphasis on those who were separated from their family. The work was satisfying in a manner that my accounting profession had not been, and we had already assisted over 200 seniors in our community. Natalie eventually joined the group as an outreach coordinator, contributing her nursing knowledge and compassionate attitude to our purpose. She and I continued to have our weekly wine sessions, but they now took place on my lovely patio, rather than in my tiny apartment. My relationship with my family had become more distant, although also more honest. I maintained periodic touch with the majority of them, polite birthday calls and holiday gatherings, but the semblance of closeness had faded. Our relationships became less unpleasant once we let go of the unrealistic idea of emotional connection. They had no idea I'd won the jackpot. As far as they were concerned, I had just discovered success in my new nonprofit management profession. They appeared to accept this explanation without questioning the specifics, which told me everything I needed to know about their involvement in my life. There had been moments of temptation to tell the truth, such as when Andrew called to ask for money for a new business venture, or Rachel moaned about the cost of her kitchen remodel. But each time, I remembered the quiet when I needed aid, and the decision became obvious. Interestingly, there were times when family members truly required help. When my father suffered a small heart attack and received unanticipated medical costs, I paid them anonymously through the hospital's patient assistance fund. When my cousin Ethan finally went to rehab for his gambling addiction, I sent an anonymous donation to support his treatment. They had no idea who gave them these gifts, and I preferred that. Clara and I ate dinner together at least twice a week. Her health has substantially improved, thanks to adequate medical attention and less financial stress. She had retired from teaching but volunteered at a literacy program 3 days a week, where she continued to share her love of books with youngsters in need. "You know what still amazes me?" she asked one evening as we sat on her veranda, admiring the sunset. "How differently everything could have turned out if you had announced your lottery win right away." I nodded, contemplating this alternate existence. The family would have suddenly become very attentive and loving, I imagine. "And you would never have known what was real," Clara said. "That knowledge, painful as it was, gave you freedom." She was correct. The experience had been painful but instructive. It had taught me who deserved a place in my life and who did not. It had shown the genuine nature of relationships that I had spent years attempting to improve despite their underlying imbalance. The most important lesson I had learned was not about others, but about myself. Before the lotto, I defined my worth based on what I could give to others. Constantly attempting to earn love through sacrifice and charity, I had allowed myself to be used because I believed that was what family meant and what love needed. Now I realized that true love, the type Clara had shown me, did not keep a balance sheet. It gave generously without expecting anything in return, while still respecting boundaries and dignity. It was honest and consistent, both good and negative. I originally kept my winnings a secret out of worry that money would poison my relationships. What I hadn't expected was how the secret would clarify things instead, removing pretense and showing truth. Nobody's identity has changed because of the money. It had just revealed who they were all along. My life was suddenly richer in ways unrelated to my bank account. I had purpose because of my foundation, a true relationship with Clara and Natalie, and a hard-earned conviction of my own value that no external validation could undermine. Perhaps most importantly, I felt peaceful. My longtime fear about money was vanished. But there was also a frantic yearning for acceptance from individuals who couldn't give it. I had developed a life based on my values rather than my insecurities. Clara reached over and patted my palm, returning me to the current moment. "You did good, kiddo, not just with the money, but with what you learned." I smiled at her, overcome with appreciation for this woman who had shown me what family truly meant. I had a good teacher. As the sun fell below the horizon, coloring the sky pink and gold, I reflected on my trip to this point. From the shock of those matching numbers, to the sorrow of rejection, to the thrill of making something important with my unexpected wealth, the money had changed my life. But not in the ways I had anticipated or feared. It just gave me the freedom to see clearly and make sensible decisions. The most valuable lesson I had learned had nothing to do with millions in the bank. It was the realization that the individuals who deserve a place in your life are those who remain when you have nothing to offer except yourself. Have you ever had to test someone else's devotion in your life? What did you gain from the experience? Please share your stories in the comments section below. If this story spoke to you, please like and subscribe to hear more real-life lessons that may transform your viewpoint. Remember to share this video with someone who may benefit from hearing that their worth is not decided by what they can contribute to others. Thank you for listening. Take care. Good luck.